Doesn't seem to have his rhythm down, does he? He's not very rhythmic in his drum beating. Let's have a look. I'm just wanted to have a quick look around. It doesn't look like there's any other competition. As I said, this can sometimes go on for days upon days, but it is still very, very cool to see. And even if maybe he's already won the female, he's still going to sit there and proudly beat on his drum for up to an hour or two afterwards. Well, that was very cool. We're going to continue our search for some cheetahs and say goodbye to the Corrie bastards. So while we look for our 9th and 10th cheetah of the day, let's go across to Jamie with the musketeer lions.
That's not a bad sentence, is it? While we look for the 9th and the 10th cheetah of the day. My goodness me, we are seriously spoiled for choice out here. So while Brent goes off in search of his umpteenth cheetah for the day, we are not going to go in search of anything else, I don't think, this afternoon. I think you'll all agree that a bit of patience with these boys, especially because they are quite restless this afternoon. They are moving about, they are up and down. I think we should stick here as long as possible. There is the added advantage, of course, of the fact that the rain is not here, which helps to make that decision particularly clear to me. So I mentioned the names earlier, but for our new viewers, I think that perhaps it might be a nice idea to reiterate. Scar is pretty obvious. So Scar is the one with the big scar over his face, and he's the one lying on the left there. You can't see him because he's hidden his face behind the grass. But there's 4 of them that belong to this coalition. Scar, the easily recognizable one, Hunter, Morani, Morani, and Sikio, Sikio. So those are the 4 members of the Musketeer Coalition. And as I said, I've seen all 4 individually at different times, but never all together like this. You've seen it for our regular viewers, you've seen it with the Birmingham boys in the Sabi Sand, how initially we used to see all 4 of them together all the time. And once they really established themselves as the dominant coalition and their territory size increased, they were more often apart than they were together, and it was a rare treat to see all 4 of them around. So all 5 of them actually were together in the beginning, now unfortunately down to 4. So now we can really truly appreciate just what a special sight this is. It's an interesting thing. Yes, when male lions take over a pride, they do occasionally kill the sub-adult lionesses, and you are right in that it seems slightly illogical in that if they were to wait just a few months, then they would be able to mate with those females as well and have an even better chance of producing offspring. But it does happen, not always. There is that really awkward cut-off point for young lions when a male... So let's start at the beginning for viewers who have perhaps only just discovered the joys of safari. When a male lion coalition... Oh, he's got a sore paw. There's Scar, giving us a very clear demonstration. Oh, and the flies are sitting on his scar, and it looks like it's opened up a little bit as well. It definitely doesn't look too good, actually. Sorry, hold off. Sorry, Umkar, give me a sec. Ouch. Yeah. Open injury over that wound as well, and that's inevitable because of course a scar is a vulnerable spot on a male lion or on any creature, and it opens up more easily and gets infected more easily in a lot of cases, especially because there's no fur around there to protect it. Okay, back to Umkar's question. When a male lion coalition takes over a territory, they kill all of the cubs from the previous males, and they do that to bring the females back into estrus, so that they can mate with them and that they can produce their own cubs. It seems cruel, but it's nature's way of ensuring that there isn't any inbreeding, and essentially ensuring that a male lion in his lifetime gets to pass on his genes. The sub-adult female question is tricky. There's a cutoff point at around about 2 years old when those lionesses are pretty much safe. But Something that happened and something that we saw during the Birmingham Boy takeover was that when male lions come in, they are so pumped up and full of aggression and testosterone, particularly at a young age, that a lot of the time even adult lionesses fall victim to their fury. So if the lionesses try to fight back, if they try to defend their cubs, the male lions are so overwrought, so overwrought that occasionally they actually wind up killing adults, let alone sub-adults as well. So it is a difficult one, especially when the males are young and inexperienced. Look at him, he's just got the most characteristic hair. I think you could identify him pretty easily from that mane, even if you couldn't see the scar. Don't you agree? It's floppy. Got the floppiest mane of any male lion. I don't know, I think everyone had better ask Tristan. I don't know if Tristan is driving this afternoon, but I think you better ask Tristan where he thinks Scar's mane falls on the fluffometer. Pretty high up there, I think. In fact, might even be around about the toy pom scale. Paul, I don't spend enough time around all of their territory to know exactly. So, Paul, yes, I think they are definitely under pressure from this particular side where we are at the moment, which is I guess you'd say the southwestern corner of their territory. You know those two young Chelly males? The one with the collar? Now, we've seen them mating with females very, very close to where we are now. So that would mean that they are potential threats to the 4 older boys. Now, I suspect that the 4 older boys together, those 2 young boys, would be absolutely no match for this show of strength. But if they were to catch one of the musketeers on their own, 2 young males, the musketeers are already a bit limpy, a couple of old injuries that might slow them down slightly, then yes, that would be a potential threat. As to the male lion coalitions on the other side of the river, because remember the musketeers' territory stretches over the Mara River, I'm not 100% sure. I'm not sure what the male lion dynamic is on that side of the river. I don't spend much time. In fact, I've only really been to Paradise Plain twice in the entire 6 months I've been in the Mara, so I'm not sure exactly what threats are presented to them from that area. Forgive me for 1 second. I just want to see what's going on the other side there. I think can't quite work it out. There's people out of the vehicle, but there's rangers with them. So I don't think anything too serious. Just wanted to check and see whether they needed any help. But they don't. And they're far enough away that the lions are not in any way bothered by them. Sorry, Faith, what were you going to say before I got wholeheartedly distracted? Hey, boys. Oh, okay. I'm going to sit patiently. It's going to be my turn to play the patience game for now. Let's go and have a look at what other bird Brent has found for you this time.
There was a bird. It is gone. Let's see. Did you see where it went? Oh, Dad, it was sitting so nicely. It was a rosy-throated longclaw right next to us, but I think it is now a goneclaw. Yeah, I know, it's done a despairing act. There are quite a few of them up here on the ridge, so I will keep checking. Oh, we do have both gazelle species up ahead. We've got some Tommies and some Grants, or a Grants that I can see. Still no sign, unfortunately, of the gills. Here we go. Hello, gazelles. TS is wondering, do we get a lot of rain this time of the year? A fair amount, TS, a fair amount. It's the small rainy season, but the more rain from May. Oh, sorry, not from May. From the end of February, March, April, May, towards the beginning of June is the main rainy season. This is the small rains. You have two rainy seasons here in Kenya: the big rains and the small rains. Okay, gazelles, we're the things that eat you. If we get no luck with the ladies, I think we might see if I can find my favorite male lion coalition, the Bilashaka boys. It's just so nice to say that. The Bilashaka boys. Now, of course, they also are a potential threat to those lions that Jamie is with. They're not too far up from where they are. So, let's go see what Jamie thinks about the Bilashakas pushing into musketeer territory.
Oh, that's exactly what I was thinking about, by the way. I just got thoroughly distracted by whatever goings-on are happening in my eye line. But yes, absolutely, the Bilashaka boys. Does anyone know what Bilashaka means? I do, and the only reason I know that is because Faith told me a couple of days ago. Possibly even yesterday. I've lost track of time. Bilashaka is the perfect name, in my mind, for those 6 young males. Without a doubt. That's literally what it means. I'm not just saying it without a doubt. It's a good name. I mean, Bilashaka without a doubt. That is what it means. So yes, the 6 male lions, 6 young male lions, they're a threat to these boys. They're a potential threat to the triangle boys, Fang and Halftail and their ilk, up towards around the Angama Pride and around the Sausage Tree Pride. It remains to be seen where they wind up. I think they could pretty much go wherever they want to if they stay together. Holden, welcome. Holden has obviously just jumped on board while we're sitting with the musketeer male lions. Have they eaten yet? No, they're hungry. Particularly Scar. He looks to be rather empty. In fact, they're all pretty empty-bellied. Now, when you look at a lion like this, it's always slightly tricky to tell. Because, of course, when they're lying down, you can't really see just how empty their bellies are. When they're very full, that is immediately apparent, even if they are lying down. But when they are at varying stages between semi-full and empty, it becomes more tricky. But no, they haven't eaten. What are they going to eat? Well, it remains to be seen. The Ngoro Pride of lionesses is not far from here, nor is the Paradise Pride. It wouldn't be above a male lion to go off and steal whatever the ladies are eating, but they're more than capable of eating or hunting and catching dinner for themselves. With 4 of them like this, anything is on the cards. They probably would ignore a small antelope, but a zebra, a buffalo would be a good meal for them. A giraffe, potentially. I have not seen one lion giraffe kill in my time in the Mara. First thing I saw was a leopard giraffe kill, which was unexpected. Giraffe, hippopotamus, as the evening falls. 4 massive male lions like this, first of all, have rather large appetites, and secondly, have a supreme show of strength. Swapna? Isn't it funny that you should ask that, Manu? Manu and I were talking about this just earlier on, and we were talking about the lion's mane. So I'm afraid I might have butchered your name, but Swapna is essentially wanting to know a little bit more about whether or not there's any relationship between the color of a lion's mane and a sign of strength, or perhaps good, what would be the word, good genetics. There is something very interesting, and this is a study that's been carried out a few times by a few different people, organizations, universities. Lionesses prefer dark-maned males. That's not to say they won't mate with light-maned males, but lionesses prefer dark-maned males. Most male lions will go darker with age. There is a certain inevitability to that, but not all of them. So there's also a level of genetic connection there as well. So most males will go darker with age. It is a sign of good nutrition. It is a sign of a healthy male lion, but again, genetics play a role. Whether or not a male lion has a full mane of hair is also area and temperature dependent. I must say though, within the Mara that has on average a far lower temperature than say in South Africa, or at least the low veld of South Africa, there are some really, really magnificent male lions out here. Oh, I suppose there definitely are in South Africa as well. But the Notch boys, the musketeers, the 4 kilometer boys, they are all exceptionally good looking lions, even though it is a bit colder. Striking, I think, is the term I would use. So most of the young males that we see out here are blonde for now. Young males, I mean. Most of them will go dark as they grow older. Fascinating to me that question was asked. It was well timed. It was a very good thought. Okay. Again, while we sit playing the patience game with our musketeer males, let's go across to Brent, who has got, I suppose you could call them, their arch nemesis.
We do. We've got a lovely little group of hyenas. They've got a den close to here, but after a little rainstorm that Jahawi and I got wet in a bit earlier, they seem to just be enjoying being out on the open, in the open, sorry, not on the open, my goodness, and sitting right on top the western side of the ridge. Now the den is behind us in the rocks, but they're wandering around. They were being not too playful. Some of them were lying in some mud. They just got up, started for a little stroll, which of course is bad news for us if we're looking for cheetah, and the cheetah do not like the hyenas at all. And it is exquisitely beautiful up here today. Now, this is one of the larger clans of hyenas in the Mara. This ridge clan, I think they can muster close to 100 when it gets going. But there is a lot of competition amongst the hyena clans in the Mara. They're very big clans. This area in particular, you've got a very big clan down on Paradise Plain. You've got another big clan towards Double Crossing, and this big clan up on the ridge. So there is definitely lots of competition between the hyenas. So we've got a couple of adults and some sub-adults. And it's a sub-adult being groomed there. Mrs. Zero would like to know which one is Howard. Mrs. Zero, all of them are Howard. It's Howard 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All Howard, where you can never get confused when you're naming a hyena, when they're all named Howard. Howard can be a boy, Howard can be a girl. Oh, and that Howard's having a roll. Oh, that looks good. Itchy back. When the sun comes out of the clouds, it is really warmer. Damon would like to know, why do hyenas roll in the mud? Because it feels good. And also to cool down. They like lying in mud when it gets hot, especially when they got fat bellies from eating too much meat. They'll just go lie in the mud and digest. I don't think it's going to be too long if this sun stays out before the hyenas head back towards the mud. While they contemplate what they... Oh, wait. Before we move on, what is on top of that tree there? It looks like a martial eagle. From this distance, let's have a look with the binos. You know why it looks like a martial eagle? Because it is a martial eagle. Quite a long way off. I love how erect they stand. Oof. Wow. There are a couple of thousand wildebeest down towards the Maasai Marsh that I didn't even realize were there. So I think if I was a cheetah, I would go down there. So we're going to start heading that way. Oh, Howard number 6 has arrived. Hello, Howard number 6. Okay, let's keep moving. While we leave the hyenas and head down towards the Maasai area, let's go back to the musketeers, who are hopefully thinking about getting moving sometime this century. Oh.
It doesn't look like it. In fact, it looks almost as though they're enjoying the wind blowing through their mane and probably have very little desire to move. And I think at this point, since most of them are hidden, after this we'll probably leave them and then come back towards the end of the sunset safari. We'll make a decision in a moment. I think we'll go and look for other things, perhaps show you a few elephants and some antelope, and then come back as it gets towards the later hour of the evening when the lions are more likely to be up and about. I would like to get you a screenshot of all 4 of the musketeers walking shoulder to shoulder down the road. That's what I'm after. Brent, a fully grown rhino, unlikely, but possibly if the rhino was perhaps injured or a little under the weather. So Brent's question is, could these 4 males kill a rhino? I assume you mean an adult rhino. Obviously, yes, they could absolutely kill a young rhino, especially because they would be able to distract the mother with all 4 of them acting together. But an adult rhino, it doesn't often happen that lions take on rhinoceros. The skin is thicker than that of a hippopotamus. It's a harder animal to actually manage to tackle and ultimately to do enough damage to be able to kill it. So that skin is phenomenally tough on a rhinoceros. Very, very difficult to get through. So while I think it would probably be possible, I don't think it would be very, very likely. And, I mean, that's one of the reasons why rhino have such a high life expectancy, that they are essentially pretty much safe from all predators out here, with limited exceptions. I mean, I've seen lions often practicing their hunting skills on lions. Oh, what? Well, that too. I've seen lions practice hunting skills on rhino before. Youngsters actually jumping up and riding on the rhino's back for a little while before being shaken off again. The worst part of that was that I was pretty new to guiding back in the day, and I assumed that that sort of thing happened all the time. How wrong I was. It's not something that you get to see all that frequently. Paul, yes, these male lions would fight with each other over food, over females. If one of them happens to lie down upon the other one when it's not in a very good mood, internal scraps are common. They are more common with relatively newly territorial coalitions than they are with the older coalitions, the more established coalitions. That's not to say that there is a strict hierarchy within established coalitions, because that changes. It's not really, you couldn't even really call it a hierarchy, but essentially the male lion that gets to mate with the female is the one who's been with her first. He's the one that's better fed at that moment. He's the one in better condition at that moment. And he might tire, and actually one of the other coalition members will move in. But yes, they do scrap internally, sometimes actually causing injuries that could look quite severe, and occasionally are if they become infected. But they usually pull their punches when they fight with each other. So it will never really get to the point where there's the possibility of serious injury or possibly even death. Whereas between males, oh boy. Between rival male coalitions, blind fights often are fights to the death, or at least to the point where the male is so badly injured that their chances of survival are dramatically decreased. We don't know where these injuries came from. We've got absolutely no idea. At least the fresh ones. I think that the Bilashakas are a good call. Dina, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't know which one is the injured one. I know obviously that it's not Scar, but I'm not sure which of the the three other musketeers it is. I haven't had a proper chance to have a look at him. I admit to being so utterly distracted by the sheer joy of seeing all of them together. I didn't properly observe him, and I haven't spent enough time with the musketeers to be able to straight away tell the difference between them. I'm pretty sure, though, that you will find the answer is sent through during the course of the sunset safari. Somebody out there will know which male lion is the one with the massive stitched-up wound. Now, apparently there's a suggestion that it's Hunter from Stan. Stan or Sam? Not that I'm in any way saying... Okay, Stan, yeah. Then, Stan, it would be Hunter. Okay, there we go. We have our answer from Stan. Thank you to Stan. Stan is telling me that it's Hunter. That helps tremendously. Thank you, Stan. So it's Hunter that has the nasty injury on his back limb. I wonder when that was stitched up. They look like old stitches to me, or oldish stitches. Joy watching all the way in Hong Kong. Wouldn't it be quite late for you there? How many hours ahead is Hong Kong? Oh, it's only 4 now. Joy, possibly. I don't know whether or not it would happen. So essentially, Joy is wondering if the lions were to attack a rhino, would the rangers step in? Probably. Would they? We're not saying should. We're saying would. Would they step in? And the answer is probably yes. But I'm not sure on that. And it's not really for me to answer. It's not really ultimately my decision at all. We simply here as Safari Live, we are simply observers. And our job is to help you to fall in love with the animals. Ours is not to interfere with what the authorities of this area choose to do. But yes, I suspect they possibly would. Virginia, I don't know which male lion is the oldest male lion in the Mara area, but I'm pretty certain that it's not Scar. Scar, I don't think, is actually that old. although he is reaching sort of the point where he's been around for a fair amount of time. But I'm not sure who the oldest lion in the Mara is, but I'm pretty certain it's not him. I have a suspicion that the Notch boys, one of them unfortunately is no longer with us, I have a suspicion that the Notch boys were older, if I remember correctly. And again, Stan, if you know or if you have a rough idea as to which male lion would be the oldest in the Mara, I don't think it's Scar. And that, of course, is in the areas where people are most active. There are certain corners of the Mara National Reserve, for example, where people hardly ever go. So who knows, down towards that sort of area, what lions are about. Okay, guys, what do you think? I think we leave them for now. We go and have a little loop around, go and look at some ostrich or whatever else I can find in the distance, and then come back. One of the animals I was aiming to find you this afternoon was an elephant, but it sounds like perhaps Brent has beaten me to it.
Yes, I've been looking for everything except elephants. I've been looking for cats, but we're finding everything but cats this afternoon. So you can just see the Ellies with that lovely sky behind them. Well, an elephant with a lovely sky behind it. The rest of the herd are just off to the left of us. Enjoying the lovely lush grass. There's definitely been quite a bit of rain in this area since I was last here, which is of course quite a while ago, and definitely more rain here than in the Talek area. And the grass here is just emerald green, and that's obviously what's causing the big herds of wildebeest to hang around double crossing and the marsh. I mean, every time I look into the distance towards the marsh, or looking at something else, I suddenly see all these little black specks, and I realize that is a massive herd of wildebeest. So there's still wildebeest here. The loiter herd haven't moved on. The elephants, probably a little bit grumpy about that. Elephants don't like wildebeest. Joe and I were just chatting about when we spotted the eddies, how many times we'd seen elephants chase wildebeest and whatnot. And Joe said he'd heard about elephants actually flicking wildebeest when they got really upset with them, saying that would just be a really incredible thing to see. Okay, I see. I'm going to change my route a little bit. Dawn is wondering, how do we stay safe? And then you broke up a bit there, Faith, in an open vehicle. Well, the animals don't have instinctive responses to the vehicle. A vehicle's only been around about 100 years, but the most important way to stay safe is to read the animal's behavior. If an animal's upset, we give it space. But I'm looking at these elephants we're coming up upon now. I can see from her body language that she's very relaxed. There's no erection in her tail. This looks like, oh, she's quite an old female. Just looking at how her head's drooping. Tall shoulders, but an old girl. Hello, big girl. Oh, Shem, you are an old girl. And you can just see, when elephants become old, you start seeing the sort of hollows in their head start becoming more pronounced, and the skin becomes a little bit more baggy. And see, she's holding her head quite low below her shoulders. And it's probably her last calf, this little one here. It's probably, he's about 3, well, she's about 3. I don't think she's probably going to have another calf after this, just judging from her age. Hey, old lady. We're going to let our old lady meander on. We're going to do the same and head down eventually towards the Mara River and then head back towards Musiara on the Paradise Plain. Maybe the Cheetah girls have gone down there. That is one of their favorite spots. Maybe the Billashaka boys are around. Who knows? But the one thing is for certain, there are lots of wildebeest around down towards the marsh. StreamTube is wondering, do angry male elephants ever give the driver problems? Hello, hyena. You are very fat. Yes, you are. You are obese. You need to go and diet. Fat hyena. You're not a hyena, you're a fat hyena. Yes, go for a jog. Off you go. There's not so obese, but another hyena. This will all be part of the same clan we saw earlier. Yes. Hello. You're not a fat hyena. You're just a hyena. But StreamTube is wondering about angry male elephants giving vehicles problems. Strange enough, it's far more often you're going to get yourself in a dangerous situation with a female elephant with a calf, and in areas where they might be under stress due to lack of food, confrontation with people. You never know. So it's always important to judge each individual elephant sighting on its own, because the same elephant that's fine today might have had a bad night and is not going to be fine tomorrow. So you need to watch their body language and then make up your choice from there. So yes, sometimes angry male elephants and angry female elephants can give the vehicles a bit of a shove. I have not had a situation since I've been doing the live safaris once where I've actually felt in danger from elephants at all. And I have had some warning charges and whatnot, but again, it's how you deal with those situations. And most important thing is to stay calm and sometimes use some harsh language. Elephants listen to you, you shout at them. It's more the tone of the voice and stuff. Sometimes banging the side of the car works to stop a charge. And again, as I said, you have to read every situation independently. You can't have a blanket rule for everything. Well, it seems like Jamie has decided the musketeers are napping for this century. So she's gone and found, well, we found the heaviest flying bird. She's now found the biggest bird.
It wasn't hard to find, but I just thought it was such a lovely continuation on the topic of body language. So while mostly it's important for us to watch the body language of animals for safety and the animal's safety, sometimes there's a lesson to be learnt. So ladies, I'd like you to take out a notepad and a pen and jot some notes down on the flirting technique from this female ostrich. Note how she's acting completely disinterested, but at the same time, just a delicate forward bend. She's just eating. But at the same time, every now and again wafting her wings to remind the male that she's there, and perhaps show off what in ostrich terms might be considered to be her best asset. That's interesting. I always find it thoroughly entertaining to watch the flirtatious behavior of an ostrich. They are not subtle about the entire process. So you'll find that there's the signs are very clearly given and very clearly received at times by the male. Now what surprises me is that there's actually two females here. Look, she is also cooling herself down. So I'm being a little bit unfair to our flirtatious female. She is also trying to cool herself in the hot air, but that's not her only reason. There's the male in the middle, and there is the slightly more conservative female on the left. My dear girl, you're going to have to keep up. The lady in front of you is flashing a bit of thigh. Holden? Sorry, I really did go down the realm of the ridiculous there. There's one last thing I want to show you, and then I will talk about Holden's question, and that is the pink flush that the sight of that amount of exposed ostrich thigh has achieved in the male. So that is, he's not too pink actually. I've seen stronger blushes. Oh no, wait, there we go. Look at that. Look at that. Flushed, but still hungry. Renee Costa, you say that the ostrich should write a dating manual. Yes, I'm not quite sure what it would include. Ladies, when I don't know, wave your wings around. Look keen, but not too keen. Make it clear that the food is just as important as his attention, perhaps. Silly. Jamie's being very silly. There's one last thing I wanted to comment on, and that is the fact that you saw earlier Brent's display with the Cory bustard and the breeding call. I believe, Faith, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that it was roaring, or at least making that roar-like sound. Okay. So, there's something similar within the ostrich sound. I'm going to stop that right there because he's looking around thoroughly unimpressed that there might be a potential rival. His attention diverted from his lady friend, and immediately looking around for the responsible caller. I've completely forgotten whose question I was meant to be answering. I'm so sorry. We were talking about, there was a question about life expectancy of ostriches. So when you look at this ostrich has reached sexual maturity. Sorry, Holden. So Holden, this ostrich has reached sexual maturity. They do it around about 3 or 4, but it's only really when they're at this age, 6 or 7, that they're ready to mate. And if I remember correctly, you're looking at around about 15 or so years for an ostrich's life expectancy in the wild. Apologies, I got so distracted by my sheer strange train of thought. Yes, make sure those feathers are all in place. Nobody likes an ill-groomed man. That's not true. I'm sorry, I am completely talking utter nonsense. There's some part of my brain that is just tinging away in the background. Life expectancy of ostriches is much longer. I don't know why I said 15. I'm talking utter nonsense. It's 40. It's up to 40 years. They live a long time. I know because I've encountered some problem ostriches that have remained problem ostriches for a considerable period of time. What utter nonsense I'm talking. I'm so sorry, Holden. I don't know where that came from. Right, I didn't do it. We were talking about breeding season and whether or not they have a strict breeding season. I'm actually not sure in this area. Now, typically within South Africa, they will have a breeding season, but I'm not too sure. Within the Mara, with the 2 rainy seasons, I'm not too sure exactly how the ostrich breeding season plays out. I'm trying to rack my brains because I did a whole load of research on the differences between Kenya and South Africa. Oh, both wings now. My goodness, is he just not getting the hint? or is he? Or is there just a really attractive bit of food there? Oh no. Oh no. Her poor dented ego. How tragic. My heart just broke. Oh, you poor, poor girl. I am being very silly this afternoon, I'm sorry. I think she's cooling down as well. I think that there is dual purpose here. I think she's just feeling a little bit hot, and I don't blame her. It is quite hot. It is quite warm under the boiling sun. I still think there's something a little bit flirtatious. So I didn't do it. I'm not sure about when exactly they would breed, if they have a strict breeding season. I suspect that they do, and I imagine that it is like most birds around the rainy season, and probably both rainy seasons potentially, if they haven't managed to breed in the first one. But I'm really not sure. I'm busy checking now on my birding app, and it tells me that the mating season begins in March or April, so just before the big rains, and will cease in September. So why haven't we seen one baby ostrich, I ask you? What have we been doing wrong? If that's the breeding season, March and April to September. I'll just check that in the bird book. That's what it tells me. Well, we know that in this area there's a lioness with a taste for ostrich eggs. I say that. She found one. But you never know. Perhaps they have been responsible for the fact that we haven't seen one single baby ostrich. March to September. I've been here since June. Have we put one baby ostrich on the screen on these live safaris in the Mara? I don't think we have. Unless I missed something somewhere. How is that possible with the amount of time that we see ostriches? I just assumed their breeding season was coming now, and that's why we hadn't seen any. Mysterious. Why aren't there any little sub-adult ostriches wandering about? Or semi-sub-adult ostriches? Strange. But a bit perplexed by the accuracy of that. I'll have to ask somebody who's been here a long time. That is what I shall do. Okay, we were talking, by the way, about ostrich nests and where they lay their nests. Here's the interesting thing about ostriches. So we've seen the two females here, and there might actually be a more specific explanation for the fact that one female is displaying while the other is not. Male ostriches have harems, kind of like Impala, or like a zebra during breeding season, but he has a dominant female within that harem. He has a pair bond with one particular female, so it's quite a complex thing. Now, although he has multiple females, he essentially has one favorite, and what he will do is he will dig a pit on the ground for the nest. And then the dominant female will lay her eggs, and then the other females will lay their eggs in that particular pit as well, in large harems. So it could be that we're looking at the dominant female here, potentially. Perhaps she has the right to display. I'm not 100% au fait with ostrich breeding behavior, but that's a possible suggestion as to why we're seeing that behavior from one or not the other, and not the other. Swapna, yes, it is indeed a myth. And it is a myth that has been around for a very, very long time. So the myth is that the ostriches stick their head in the ground when confronted with danger. Now, I don't know the exact origin of the myth, but it is safe to say that ostriches do not. If they were to try that here, they'd find themselves with quite a serious headache. The ground is rather hard, or else a nostril full of mud after the rains. So I don't know where it came from. Maybe it's the possibility that particularly young ostriches will often use their camouflage. They'll sit down and they'll try and hide away from a potential threat. But I don't know exactly where that myth originated from. That would be my guess. But I do know that I remember reading somewhere that particular myth has been around for a very, very long time. And of course then perpetuated initially by theatre, and then, or plays, and then onwards through the sort of cartoons and films where the ostrich slams its head into the ground. But no, they don't do that. Okay, we're going to move on in search of other fascinating creatures to show you. In the meantime, let's go and see whether Brent has had any luck in his search for the umpteenth cheetah.
No luck, but we have many, many zebra, topi and wildebeest around. So where there's prey, there's got to be a predator. Well, that's how I'm rolling. And there's someone I can have a chat to, see if they've seen anything. But it is absolutely gorgeous down here. I mean, this, so difficult, but outside of the Sand River, I think this is one of my favorite areas in the Mara. What is making dust like that? Oh, hello, baby topies. No, it's just zebra chasing each other around. But with all these wonderful animals comes many, many flies. So lots and lots of zebra. And as we head further towards the marsh itself, lots and lots of wildebeest. I mean, it is just beautiful. Oh, getting absolutely attacked by the flies at the moment, though. Two zebra. It is really, really gorgeous here. There's fluffy clouds, plenty of game, plenty of flies. Although I know Jamie did mention that I forgot my hairbrush on 3 days across the river. And it's definitely going to be fun trying to get those knots out, but I'm sure I'll manage. Kathy says the sky is so freaky. Oh, I don't think it's that freaky. I think it's quite common at rainy season skies. Oh, pretty. I was very confused there why it would be freaky. Indeed, I agree with you. It is very, very pretty. Absolutely gorgeous, in fact. Not freaky at all. Oh. Look at that. Oh, escaping. It's only popped a head out of a hole. Hello, hyena. Lots of hyenas around here. I don't think this is a den. I just think it was a conveniently cool place to lie. And as you can see, there's very little shade around here. Sorry to disturb. Looks very upset with me. I'm going to keep moving before it gets too much more upset. Oreo Boo says, I heard zebra are black with white stripes. It's true. No. They're white with black stripes. definitely white with black stripes. Of course, I'm joking. They can be white with black stripes or black with white stripes. Why don't we ask the zebra? Zebra, what are you? I don't think that male zebra actually minds. So whatever you would prefer, white with black stripes or black with white stripes. I don't think the zebra minds either way. Now, I saw some vehicles under the only tree on this plain, which means there's either people having lunch or a little break, or there's a big cat there. I'm going with big cat. Now, the next tricky thing is we're trying to figure out, is it on our side of the lugger or on the other side of the lugger? Where's that car coming from? On the other side of the lugger. So we're going to cross the lugger. Scarlett's wondering, will the grass remain green during summer? Indeed it will, Scarlett. You might have a little bit of brown grass between January, February, where there's a break between the two rainy seasons. But overall, the Mara remains pretty green for most of the year. Ooh, we've got some mud to contend with, by the looks of things. No, we're going to go around it. No need in taking the marshmallow pin away from Taylor McCurdy. She deserves it. She earned it. It belongs with her. I know Taylor, if she's watching, would be squealing something in retort. A little common sandpiper here right on the ground next to us. For those of you who might be missing common sandpiper from your bird lists, see the shoulder, there's a little C that goes around on the shoulder. That's how you can tell the common sandpiper very easily. Okay, and then we have some spurwing lapwings as well before we head off. Now, far more common than the blacksmith lapwing, off it goes, in this area, although they both compete for very similar habitat. Although we do see blacksmiths from time to time. Now, I'm going to try and get towards that tree. I think there has to be a big cat there. I'm just trying to figure a way not to join or take the Marshmallow Queen title from the Hurdy Birdie McCurdy. Now, I don't know if Taylor told you, but she actually phoned me while I was on leave, while she was stuck in the mud, to find out if I knew anyone who could help pull her out. Tisk McCurdy. Anyway, we're going to let Birdie McCurdy rest while she's resting on leave. I'm going to see if I can negotiate my way across this floodplain towards that tree, and hopefully there's a big cat underneath it. While I do that, we're going to send you all the way to South Africa, and Noel will say hello.
Everyone from Juma in South Africa in the Sabi Sands. It is warm, warm, warm. It's about 33 degrees Celsius, which is about, I think, 92 degrees Fahrenheit. I am Noel, well. And on camera, I have Sebastian. Hi, Seb. Fantastic. So don't forget, we are live. We are interactive. #SafariLive on Twitter, or follow us on the YouTube chat. So this morning, I was chatting with Tristan. It seemed to be a little bit quiet, and I don't know if this heat is going to give us much, but I'm always hopeful, as you know. So we're going to head towards waterholes. Because of how warm it is, I'm going to hope that we get something drinking or possibly playing in the water, a little bit of activity, and hopefully some good birds. So as I start making my way down towards Juma Dam, we'll see if we have anything sort of hiding in the shade. I hope everybody's day or night or whatever time zone you're in is very good and it's pleasant and that you're enjoying being with us. I have a feeling that Brent and Jamie up in the Mara have been showing you lots of wonderful things. The Mara is always a good place for viewing, as is Juma itself. And also, while we're busy heading towards our water holes, I'm going to be looking for tracks as well, because sometimes will help us see if anything's been coming or going. And then, of course, with the birds, we're still on the lookout for the nemesis bird, our little Colossus cuckoo, as well as actually any of the cuckoos. I haven't really been able to get any of the cuckoos on camera for you all. It is summer. We get red-chested cuckoo. We've been hearing black cuckoo, Jacobin's cuckoo. I haven't heard the Levellants yet. I'm excited for that. Also been hearing some Deerdick's cuckoo. The African cuckoo, I haven't heard quite yet. It's a little bit early in the season still. We'll be on the lookout for all of those today. If there's anything special that everybody would like to try and look for, please let me know. Send those questions or comments through. I don't believe we had any homework from yesterday afternoon, but you can also remind me in case I have lost the plot slightly and forgotten anything I was supposed to look up for you all. We have people tracks. I actually want to show you something interesting. I think we'll have time for this. And while I'm busy setting up this special tracking exercise for you, let's head on over to Jamie, who has an ostrich. Not something that we see often here in South Africa, but it sounds like the Mara has it in plentiful numbers.
True indeed that we see them far more often than we do in South Africa. So, tracking exercise, that sounds like a great deal of fun. So while Noel figures out that whole process and puts it together for you, this afternoon we will be joined by a school in the next 5 or so minutes. And of course, for our new viewers, I always like to explain a little bit about it, just so that you know exactly what it is that's going on. So pretty much almost every weekday afternoon, we're joined by a school or a couple of schools, and during that time, we take the questions only from the kids or the teenagers joining us. And that doesn't mean you stop sending through your questions. Please keep sending through your questions. One thing that we found afterwards was that people thought that they were no longer welcome to send through questions, and so they stopped after or during the school drive. That we definitely don't want. So please continue to send through your questions in the normal way. #SafariLive on Twitter. And this afternoon we'll be joined by Hanover. So lots of ostriches. This is an entirely different group. And I have to say, far less flirtatious on the part of the females. They're paying much less attention to the pink-necked male. Oh, where is everything? There's a stillness. James, with regards to the pink coloration of the male ostriches, which is of course brighter when the birds are breeding, which is also confusing me about this breeding season deal, from what I've read. But when your question is, when do they start developing that? My guess would be that it happens when they reach sexual maturity, so at around about 3 or 4 years old. They'll start being able to flush pink in that way. That's my guess, but I'm honestly not 100% sure if that's accurate. It just makes sense in my head that if they're ready and fully grown at that age, unless it's something that only starts to happen when they are dominant, that is also a possibility. So, then it would be 6 or 7 years. But I would guess a 3 or 4. Would you agree? Breeding age, it's something that's more noticeable during breeding. So yes, that would be my guess. And of course, when they are small, when they are tiny chicks, they are completely different in color. Tiny little grass and dirt colored creatures to help to keep them camouflaged. Because you can imagine how an ostrich chick would be a very tasty snack. An adult ostrich can fight back, and fight back they do. And I'm sure Noelle will, perhaps not during her tracking exercise, but possibly afterwards, if you ask her nightly, I'm sure she'll draw out an ostrich track for you and show you just where that massive claw sits on their biggest toe. I would do it here, but solid mud doesn't really make for a good drawing canvas. Much rather use the dust of Juma. It's a really stunning afternoon, but it has got very hot after that storm. It almost feels like that was just the appetizer, and the main course is on its way. Jilly, most of those decorated ostrich eggs that you see in shops, and I had this bizarre image initially of a female ostrich decorating her ostrich eggs, but you are of course talking about the hand-carved or the hand-painted ostrich eggs that you see in curio shops. Those will be sourced from ostrich farms. So ostriches are very, very commonly farmed. In fact, one of Brent's favorite facts is that the most ostriches in the world are found in Texas, of all places. And that is because the meat is exceptionally healthy. It is lean, but yeah, it's lean. It's sort of a lean equivalent to steak or fatty red meat. They're also used. The feathers are used in all sorts of ornamental things, scarves, although I couldn't imagine why. Feather dusters, and the eggs are used for decoration. And just like with chickens, it is possible for ostriches to lay unfertilized ostrich eggs. So it doesn't mean that they've been whipped away from mum and that the baby ostriches has been unduly expelled before it can hatch. They are farmed. Okay, so while I've been rattling on about ostriches, the Juma team have been busy getting ready. You've already met Noelle. Let's head across to Ralph so that he can share his good afternoon greetings with you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome with me, Ralph Kirsten, here on the Sabi Sands in the Kruger National Park of South Africa. I am the other vehicle that's driving around, along with Noelle, and we've got Viam on the camera. And so here we are sitting just in front of the Cheetah Dam, and I'm just on my way down there. We're just gonna go and see what we can find. So please join me. Let's move down and see what is down there by the waterhole. I'm thinking there might be some hippos for us, and yes, it does look like it. So it's a lovely 33 degrees centigrade and 94 degrees Fahrenheit, so quite a nice warm day for us. Obviously, as we start out on these game dives on these hot summer days, things are normally quite calm and everything taking rest up in the shade, but let's move up here and we'll just see what we can see in the dam. I'm sure the hippos are taking the cool in the water. Definitely won't be out of the water on a day like this, nice and hot. And we'll just stop up here and take a nice bit of a view. There we go, we've got some hippos there. It's actually my first time down to this dam, so I'm discovering it with you guys. Looks like there's quite a few hippos out in front here. Now folks, with that, please join us on #SafariLive on Twitter and on YouTube, please comment, please throw us all your questions, and we'll do our best to answer as best we can. We can hear some oxpeckers, red-billed oxpeckers, and we've got some red-billed buffalo weavers' nests over there in that nice big Ledwood tree that it looks like it's dying off a little bit. Maybe when the dam rose, it probably drowned. So, but now it's lovely, nice nesting place for these red-billed buffalo weavers. Red-billed buffalo weavers are sort of communal nesters. They are cooperative breeders. There will be a whole family unit with all the youngsters and everybody assisting in the nesting and raising of the young. Very haphazard way of making their nests, but they are quite large. They use stick material as opposed to a lot of the birds using grass, but they're quite messy. They're not very organized like a lot of your weavers that tie things up. They just sort of throw things around, but they've still got their organized little family units. So it's quite nice and hot, as I've said, and there's not too much action going on. Everybody just taking that mid-afternoon sort of quietness, getting ready for that late afternoon action. Those hippos going underwater, coming up every now and then. Looks like there's a couple of youngsters with them. Okay, so I'm still going to try and just discover things around here a little bit, and we're going to see what these hippos are up to. I'm going to try and do a little bit of a count, but I think Noel's got something to tell you about tracking.
Okay, everyone, I am ready for my little tracking expedition with you. So, Seb, I believe you're focusing in on this track. This is a track from this morning from the bushwalk that James did. This one here. So you see the imprint of the heel of the shoe and then the ball of the shoe. Okay. Now, if you come over here, you can see where it looks like something's dragged on the ground. That's me, and I did that on purpose because I need to now show you something. So James is a boy. He's a man. So this is part. Just go with me. James is a boy. I'm a girl. So now I'm gonna walk. Sorry, you have to look at my backside. I'm gonna walk as I would normally walk. Okay, can we see my tracks? Okay, so now there's a couple of things I want you all to notice. One is my track, okay? But in general, my tracks are very straight. James walks with a little bit of an outward step. Can we all see that? Can we see the angle of his foot there? Okay, so now I'm gonna draw down the middle of these lines here. Okay, so with James's tracks, there's not much space to move around in. Okay, I can barely even do two lines. I'm pretty much stuck to one line. Now, me being a girl, watch what happens. Sorry, I can't draw straight lines. There's about a half a centimeter, well, a centimeter, so maybe like half an inch, roughly in between the two. Okay, so now I'm a girl. I'm meant to have babies. My pelvic region is open more. James should not be able to get pregnant. His pelvic region would be in. You can see that just from the steps, okay, just from the inside of the steps, all right? I'm sorry, my lines are not very straight. Then, here's my foot, okay? Sorry, James's foot. We're gonna start from here. So this is one print, this is one step, right? From heel to toe, 1 foot, 1 foot, second foot, sorry. Then you're gonna go up to the third step. That is the stride, okay? Now the stride of the person, let's do James's as well. There's one step, and here's one stride. Okay, that should be the shoulder height of the person. So using my trusty tracking stick, about to here. So it's one, right? harder to do by myself. And then 2, so it's basically coming up to here. James is shorter than I am. Can we see the lines, the difference in between there? So there's my shoulder and there's James's shoulder. Okay. So now we've established that I'm 5'9", so I would guess that James is 5'6", roughly. We've established sort of shoulder height of a person, and we've established there's one male and one female walking here, and they're walking in that direction. Does all of this sort of make sense? So by the width in between the steps, the amount of the width will tell you male or female, and then the shoulder height of the person. You can even go further, okay? Let's do, Seb, where's a good print for you? Can you do this print? Can you get that one? Okay, so now, and this depends on the size of your hand, and you have to build up a sort of encyclopedia for this. I'm just going to step on this side. So you can even tell the size of the shoe of the person. So it starts here and it ends there. I'm going to guess that James wears about an 11. I'm a little out of practice for this, about an 11. We'll have to double check and see if it's true. And then my shoe size, this is a 9. And you can just, maybe James is a 10.5, but I'm going to go with 11. You can just barely see the sort of side, the similarity with James's foot being just slightly larger. So 2 hands and then a little bit smaller than that. So now we've got a size 9 and a size 11, male, female, walking that way. This is used in some cases to help establish a sequence, also using the pattern of the shoe, of how many people have come onto a property that are not supposed to be here. So this would be done in sort of anti-poaching work in some scenarios. So I just wanted to show you that little, I was going to make it brief, but it's really not a brief explanation by by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm just going to plug in. Faith, I'm plugged back in. There we go. Sorry, let me just hop in quickly and then plug in. There we are. So that helps friends that I have do their work out in the field. So that's your little learning curve today for the tracking thing. If it didn't make sense, or if you want me to go over it a little bit, let me know. Sorry, Faith, where are we headed to? Brent has some cheeky lions for you up in the Maasai Mara. I'm not quite sure how hot it is there today, but I'm sure that it's probably just as warm as we are here. And so let's head on up to him and see what he has to show us that side.
Well, a big welcome to Hanover High School. And there we go, the Lions looking at you for your school drive today. So a big welcome to you guys. We are coming to you live from the Maasai Mara in Kenya. My name is Brent Leo Smith. I have Jahawi on camera. And we are in such an incredible position that we can bring you wildlife from Kenya and from South Africa, all at the same time, 100% live. Now, I am with actually 3 male lions, although only 2 of them are here, and he's giving us a good look. Hello, big boy. Now, they form part of a male lion coalition. There are 6 of them in total. Only 3 are here. The others could be lying in a little depression close by. It is about 28, 29 degrees Celsius here, so quite warm. And you can see lots of little biting flies all over his face. Hey, mister, it's okay. And his partner in crime is flat out. Now, the lions don't really move around too much at this time of the day. Now, being a predator, they will take any opportunity if something wanders too close to them. But if their core body temperature raises by just a few degrees, it can put them in a life-threatening situation. So they're going to wait till it cools down, probably only get moving around 7 or 8 o'clock tonight. It's just after 5 o'clock in the afternoon here at the moment. Now, guys, I'd love to hear questions from you. And, oh, he's being very nice. Normally at this time of the day, the lions you find are completely flat. but he's giving us a little bit of actually a really great view of him at the moment. So as I said, he's part of a 6-male lion coalition called the Bila Shaka Boys. Now the Bila Shaka is a small little river system that runs through here, and they've recently moved into this area in the last five or so months, and have still not managed to get too many prides of their own. They are quite young. The youngest, these guys being, are 3 of the younger ones, and they are about 2.5 to 3 years old. The older ones are just over 3 years old and are already starting to mate with a single lioness that's in this area. TS would like to know, is the lion population in Africa, staying steady or declining? On an average, it has declined extensively over the last 50 years or so. Estimated probably 20,000 lions left in the wild in Africa, and in the 50s there were probably 120,000. Oh, he's up. And he's going to go join the other one who's lying to the right of us. The other lion has found himself a little bit of a damp spot. There's been some rain, so that's why he's out in the sun there. Now, the coalition bonds, or the bonds between coalition members are very, very strong. And a big coalition like this of 6 male lions is probably going to rule for quite a long time and be able to sire many generations of new cubs. As I was saying about the lion population in general, it is on the decline through a lot of areas. It remains stable in certain parts of Africa, like the Maasai Mara and the Serengeti and the Greater Kruger, where you'll go visit shortly, as well as Botswana, Zambia, and certain parts of Mozambique, Namibia, have all got stable lion populations. But as a whole, throughout Africa, the populations have declined drastically over the last 50 years. Now, as I say, lions are not going to get up to too much at this time of the day. They're going to be schnoozing. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on. And we got a whole host of other animals close to us at the moment. There's big herds of zebra and wildebeest that I'm sure are going to be very worried about the lions later on this evening. Now, this is my favorite coalition of males, and I'm very excited to see how they develop over the next couple of months, whether they put big pressure on the 2 other adult male coalitions, one across the river and one just to the south of us here. But as I said, there are lots of other animals out here. So let's go say hello to Jamie, who's got the fastest antelope in Africa.
The fastest antelope in Africa, indeed. And just because we've got the school joining us this afternoon, let me quickly reintroduce myself and then we can chat, get the boring stuff out of the way first, and then we can talk a little bit more about the antelope that we're looking at. My name is Jamie, and this afternoon Manu is on camera with me. And as Brent told you, we're sitting with the fastest antelope in Africa. It's known as a topi. Topi. I think it's probably one of the best names for an antelope that we get out here. And you can really see how physically the topi is structured for speed and stamina as well. The way that they are built, powerfully constructed with very, very large shoulders and sloping backs, creates a very energy efficient stride as they run. So not only are they exceptionally fast, they can sustain it for a long time. So they can run for long periods of time over long distances at that speed. Whereas if you're looking at something like a lion or a leopard, or even especially a cheetah, they're exceptionally fast over short bursts of speed, but none of them really have the stamina to sustain it. When you're looking at predators, and you talk of stamina, you're thinking really more about the wild dogs and hyenas rather than the big cats. What's also quite interesting while we look at the topi, and by the way, I'm sure you're going to want to ask me why they have those black spodges on their legs. I actually don't know. I mean, a topi is essentially an East African version of a tsessebe, which is the Southern African equivalent. But the Southern African equivalent doesn't have those black patches on their legs. And I'm not quite sure exactly what those are for. Ilana, who is 14 years old and very, very astute. Ilana wants to know, why is it that different species of dogs can interbreed, but different antelope species can't? Technically, dog breeds are not a different species. So the definition of a species, and it gets a little complicated here, but bear with me. Among other things, one of the definitions of a species is that they cannot, or two different species, is that they cannot interbreed with each other and produce a viable offspring. In other words, an offspring that can then go on to reproduce. So a horse and a donkey, now I'll confuse myself, yes. A horse and a donkey can breed, but a mule is sterile. It can't breed. Right, with that basic definition in mind, dogs are the same species, they're different breeds. Antelope are different species entirely, and sometimes even different, in fact, in a lot of cases, not even just different species, but belonging to a different genus. Now, the way that we classify animals is in terms of their differences, and the big differences group them into kingdom, and then order, and then phylum, and so on and so forth. Kingdom, phylum, order, family, genus, species. Okay, so you sort of group them down in that order, but if they're two different genuses, then they're completely different. Now, here's where it gets a little bit confusing. There are certain antelope species that do breed with each other. For example, a tsessebe and a hartebeest can breed, so the Southern African equivalent of a topi. Now, if we're talking about that, now if you look at the topi and the Thompson's gazelle that's on the left of it, you get a really good idea of just how different those two species are. So they really, really are completely separate from each other. Now you get a Thompson's gazelle and a Grant's gazelle out here. Now they're a bit more similar, and they look quite similar. Even their horns look similar. And you get a tsessebe and a Koch's hartebeest that look similar and are very closely related, and possibly even in situations where they don't have any other option, could probably interbreed. So it is essentially because dog breeds are breeds and not different species. Okay, well, speaking of entirely different families and different tribes of antelope, from the members of the hartebeest tribe here in the Maasai Mara, let's go all across to join Noelle and her spiral-horned antelope.
All right, from one antelope species in the Mara who uses very distinctive skills in those open spaces, namely their speed, to an antelope species here in South Africa who uses its cryptic coloration, its disruptive body structure inside of those stripes there on the side. This is the Kudu. So instead of speeding away to get away from predators, it blends in. So it blends in with those stripes like I mentioned, blends in with the little dots and stripes that are on the face, it blends in with the ears, it blends in with the coloration on the legs, up through into the fact that when it runs off as well, it will lift its tail to have a bit of white for something to focus on and then drop it when it comes around the corner. Everything about this particular species of antelope is meant to elude predation. Doesn't mean that they can't elude forever, but it does help. The only species I will say that none of this works for is wild dog. African wild dogs, African painted wolves are extremely adept at chasing kudu through the bushes. And then I have to apologize and say, excuse me, how rude am I? Welcome Hanover High School. I hope you're really enjoying the afternoon drive with us. I am Noelle, and I've got Sebastian on camera with me, so sorry about that, everybody. Don't forget, you can send questions through. We love, love, love your questions. Hashtag Safari Live or on the YouTube chat. I'm not quite sure which platform you're on, but we do really enjoy them. All right, enough with my face. Let's go back to the kudu's face, because that's what we're here about, is the wildlife of Africa and experiencing what we get to very nicely see every day. And hopefully one day you all will be able to travel overseas to us and come and experience this in person. So another thing you'll notice about this kudu as she slowly moves around is that she is a browser. She eats leaves. So she's not attempting to bend her head down in an awkward position. She's utilizing where her neck is placed in the shoulders and her head to deftly, with her tiny little lips, pick off those small little leaves. You can just see how carefully she chooses each and every one. I believe your question is, why does the kudu keep nodding their heads? So when she's eating like this, she keeps moving her head around the branches so as not to get any branches near her eyes, and then pulling it around to select her leaves little by little. But with some of the other antelope species, you'll see them constantly nodding their heads. Something like a wildebeest, the topi, might be doing it up there in the Mara, and that has a lot to do with flies that are in their nose. I know specifically with a wildebeest, which hopefully we'll be able to see, and if I can't show you, hopefully Jamie or Brent can, they get these things called a little nasal botfly that flies up, and so they're constantly snorting them out and moving their heads up and down. But for her, for this particular antelope species, it's just for her to reposition where she wants to eat from. There we've got the rest of her herd of kudus over here. So we decided the other day amongst the viewers that this will now be known as a cutlery of kudu in the collective noun. So we were talking the other day about how most mammal species have a collective noun. So, I actually don't know what a topi collective noun is. Jamie might know, or Brent might know. For instance, Impala is a rank of Impala, and elephants is a parade of elephants. And then the kudu didn't have one, so we made one up. It's now a cutlery of kudu. And then we just very briefly had another antelope species walking just behind the kudu there. Fantastic, Seb, you're brilliant. Beautiful male waterbuck. Holden, you're curious to know how long do the kudu live for? It's a very good question. An antelope the size of that kudu will live roughly about 12 years. Anything sort of smaller than a kudu, you're going to start decreasing in longevity. But a kudu is about 12 years, and I would guesstimate that waterbuck that briefly showed itself as it walked past would also be about 10 years. Maybe not pushing up to 12, but possibly right around in there. Great questions. Then just in front of us, we have our third antelope species within 100 meters, so about 100 yards, about the size of your soccer fields back home. Straight up ahead, we've got our rank of kudu that is slowly coming out of the bushes. So something that's interesting to note here is we have waterbuck, we have kudu, we have impala, all within the same area. They like to group together when possible. The more eyes, the more ears, the more sense of smell, better chance of survival. But then also what you're seeing here is the impala have already come down to drink at the water hole that's behind us. Then the kudu have already come down to drink. The waterbuck are now making their way there. So sometimes you'll see them all drinking together, but a lot what you'll see is they'll sort of filter through so as to give each other time. Now notice the different colorations on this impala, much more vivid than the very gray kudus we saw, as well as those gray waterbuck. These colors pop out just a little bit more. And with these particular animals, they live in open spaces as well as closed spaces. So when they're in more open spaces, they group together, banding together, so that it's harder for a predator just to pick one. And then they tend to do behavior that mimics each other, also to help with that predation. Now, they're not doing any sort of behavior other than eating right now and walking away and showing us their bums. They're very relaxed, They can't smell or hear or see anything that would make them nervous, so this would be your normal, relaxed Impala behavior. My friend Rolf is on the other end, so let's head on over to him.
Howdy folks, we're still here at Cheetah Dam and we've been doing a little bit of bird watching while we're watching this mommy hippo with her little baby. And if you wait a little bit, you'll see him pop up every now and then. Now, hippos, they have a gestation period of about 8 months, and they will normally only give birth to one little baby. So you can see here, obviously, you know, hippos spend pretty much all of the day in the water, unless it's a little bit cooler outside. You know, it's mostly to do with thermoregulation, while they stay in the water and exit the water at night to go and graze on grass. They are mid-gut fermenters, so quite similar to that of rhinoceros or elephant in the way their digestion works. A little bit different, but more or less the same. And they can hold their breath underwater for about 6-7 minutes. But this little baby obviously not quite got the lung capacity as mommy, so you'll see she goes down underneath the water and stays under quite a lot longer than the little baby, and then he pops up now. See the little ears wagging there, just shaking the water out of the ear flaps. And I just wanted to welcome once again the school group, and I'd like to ask you a little question. We're going to zoom back to those hippos in a second, but I wonder if any of you in the next few minutes can tell me how you can tell between a male and female hippopotamus when they're in the water. When they're out of the water, it's a little bit easier, but in the water, when you can only see the head like that, does anybody know how you can tell between male and female? I'll give you a few minutes to answer, otherwise I will give you the answer and put you out of your misery if you can't find it. But just to set the scene, we've got a plethora of birds calling here. We've got the blacksmith plover along the banks. We had some red-winged prating coals. And there was a whole lot of Egyptian geese. They all seem to have moved off at the minute. But there are some still further on in the distance over there. Their VM is getting them now. And as the birds all sit along the banks here, there's some of the red-winged prating coals. Don't know if VM can see them. They're just a little bit before those Egyptian geese. Also right near the water's edge. There's some double-banded plovers, and this is a birder's paradise all around the water here at the moment. Hanover School, the question being, how old is that little baby? Well, that baby cannot be much older than a few months. It is quite difficult to age them, especially when they're in the water like that, but having a look nice and closely there, it is still very small. You know, the adults, they will get to about 1.5 or 2,000 kilograms when they're adults, but as a small little baby like that, I would hazard a guess at being between 4 and 5 months old. No more than that. It's probably even less, but probably still nursing off the mother. But during the day, obviously, this is all down to just that thermoregulation. You know, their skin is not designed to be in the hot African sun, so they spend, as I said, most of the day in the water, in the nice cool water, exiting at night when that harshness of the sun has subsided, and then that's when they'll go off and graze. So generally this is their resting time. And you'll normally only have one dominant male in a big pool like this. He won't generally tolerate any of the other dominant bulls in the area. And I do hear that there are some answers coming through. I'm just going to wait to see if any of you are right as to how you know what is a male or female hippo in the water when you can only see their heads. Okay, so two answers coming from the questions there. Is it the ears or is it the snout? In fact, a little bit to do with the snout, but I'll get to that in a moment. The ears are almost identical between male and female, so it's not to do with the ears at all. Male and female will have very similar ears. As that animal comes up now, have a look around the eye. Just to the right of the ears. Okay, she's closing her eyes now. Okay, there, I've given it away already. But this is a female. Obviously, we know that as well because of the little baby. But the babies can hang around the males sometimes. So this is a female, and it's quite similar to that of humans. You know, the ladies like to put makeup around their eyes and on their lips. The female hippos are very, very pink around the eyes, and the males are a lot darker, so they don't have that pinkness that the females have. And when she comes up again, Viam's going to go in a little bit closer there, and we're going to show you, and then maybe before we move off I can show you a male, but you see how pink she is around the eyes. That is very indicative of a female hippopotamus. Now, you did say about the snout. Yes, you can see a little bit around the snout of the males because they have got much bigger bulges coming from those big tusks that they have for fighting. Now we've got a bird flying through here, and Viam's just going to try and locate it. It looks like a bit of a juvenile, but I haven't quite identified it yet. You know, we often have that mottling color on juveniles. Looks like it might be a Wahlberg's eagle, but I can't see it quite clear enough just yet. Anyway, we're going to have a look at that in a minute. And if we can just get in nice and closely there. You know, birds that are associated with water pools like this, you'll have the African fish eagle, you'll have ospreys. You know, I'm talking in terms of the larger birds. And it looks like something smaller is going up there to mob it and chase it away. And yes, it looks like a pied crow. They're also like the fork-tailed drongos. They don't like any big birds of prey around. So they will generally go up and try and mob and chase them away. And you can have very often a few birds doing that. Alrighty folks, I think we're going to try and move off in a little bit, but I think Brent has got some animals to show you in the Mara.
Well, we got some very, very lazy spotted hyena from the governor's clan. They look like they've had a good feed, and there is a lot of food around for them at the moment. And here we go, hello, pop your head up, and that is a very fat hyena. Now, the hyenas in the Mara do a lot of their own hunting, so not only scavenging, and as Jao goes out, you'll have a look behind and just see how many animals are actually down here around the marsh.
Sorry about that, everyone. Brent has disappeared off your screens, but we're here, and we've made our way back to the four musketeers. The four massive, dark mane, dominant male lions of this particular section of Mara River. So this, if I'm not very much mistaken, is Hunter, one of the four males, and he is sporting quite a nasty injury on his back. You can't see it at the moment, it's hidden behind the grass, But he really looks as though he's got a bit of a bedhead now, doesn't he? Look at him. He's all tousled from a day spent sleeping in the grass. Now, unfortunately, to make it back in time for the gate closing, I'll probably have to leave them before they're really going to start thinking about getting up. But with rain in the air and the sun disappearing behind the clouds, it might just encourage them to get moving earlier than they might otherwise, particularly with such empty bellies. So he's using his barbed tongue to clean and realign his fur, get rid of all of those itchy insects and parasites that might have jumped on board while he's been lying in the grass. A rare treat. Amelia, the temperature right now, I believe when we started the drive it was around about 25 degrees centigrade, so 76 Fahrenheit. It's a little bit cooler now. One thing that we find in the Maasai Mara, it's quite high in terms of altitude, so the temperature stays and it's close to the equator, so the temperature stays relatively constant and relatively cool, at least by our terms. So in the low veld of South Africa in the summer, it's not uncommon for temperatures to go over 40 degrees centigrade, whereas out here, if we go over 30, it's a really, really hot day. But one of the things that I will do, and I will tell you about traveling to the Mara, take lots of sunblock and long-sleeved shirts, because the sun is very, very strong here. We're very close to the equator, and it is potent. Something that these lions know all too well, and they've spent their day curled up in the shade of the tree. But now that the sun's disappeared behind the clouds, they're out in the open. So I mentioned 4 of them. There's one over there, with his legs up in the air, cooling himself down by exposing his belly. And then there's 2 others off to my right, one of whom is world famous. His name is Scar. He's the guy at the back. And then one that I haven't positioned myself properly, so Manu can't actually quite reach him. Sorry, Manu. Now, all 4 of these boys are limping a little bit, but Hunter is definitely the one with the worst injury. And Nave is wondering about what that injury was caused by. I don't know. It could be one of 2, it could be a couple of different explanations. Most likely would be either a fight with another male lion. So these 4 are part of a coalition. They work together to defend their territory, and they are closely bonded to each other. But any strange male lion could potentially have been responsible during a fight over territory or over a female. Or it was an injury that he got during a hunt, whether they were trying to catch a buffalo or an antelope or a hippo. Particularly where large male lions are concerned, they tend to go for larger prey species, and something like a buffalo would be very capable of inflicting an injury like that. There is a third option, and that's that it came from one of his coalition members during a scrap over a meal or over a female. But usually when coalition members fight, they don't really injure each other quite so seriously. There's the odd scratch and the odd accidental puncture, but not to the extent that this injury. It's deep. It's a deep scrape. And not a scrape, it's not a scrape, it's a cut. It's a deep slice through his back leg. Now, unfortunately for the school joining us this afternoon, that is actually all that we have time for. I believe that you have to be getting on with your Monday. So good luck with that. I hope you enjoyed. I hope we see you again soon. We'll say farewell from all of us here at Safari Live, and we hope to see you again. For the rest of our regular viewers, off you pop back across to South Africa to join Noelle, perhaps to talk about more tracks. I'm not sure what she has in mind.
Thanks, Jamie, and thanks, Hanover High School. We have a Woodland Kingfisher. Oop, I'll be quiet. Hold on. Do it again. I'm assuming we can all hear that, hey? Now, my assumption on this is that it's calling for its mate, that it probably has already found. There comes the mate overhead. Did we hear it? No, it's already flown off. And then in the background, there's what I'm assuming is another male that can hear this one and is calling the typical sound we would hear of a woodland at this time of year, that chut-chutter. I'm sorry, I can't repeat it very well. There's also a red-chested cuckoo in the background there. I just want to see if this one will display a little bit or possibly give us the full call. Or possibly hunt for us. Let's just wait and see. The light's really nice, and he's sitting not far from our vehicle at all. Can we hear the red-chested cuckoos in the back? The Piet my vrouw, Piet my vrouw.
I can pick it up, but I don't know if that's it.
Pisces, Bobby, you are correct. It is the woodland kingfisher is a very striking looking bird. If he will turn around for us, it would be nice, as you'll get to see that sort of azure turquoise blue. But this preening that he's doing now, sorting his feathers out. Oh, come on, buddy, do it. He wants to. He wants to show off a little bit. I mean, he's been sitting here for 3 or 4 minutes now. They don't usually sit still for so long, so he's been very kind to us. He's feeling very self-important, pushing his breast feathers out, puffing himself up a little bit, helping him get his beak into the feathers there, getting into the preening gland, getting the oil spread around, cleaning, taking out any sort of feather that's misplaced and putting it back, or removing any sort of misplaced plumage that will hinder his ability to fly. Sorry, I don't know why it took me so long to get those words out, but there you go. So he pooed, which means he should fly, because they evacuate their bowels to make themselves lighter before they fly off. And most all birds that fly will do this. You'll see it a lot with raptors as well, birds of prey. And of course, because I said that out loud, he's like, nope. Noelle, I'm going to do the exact opposite because you said it out loud. That's what they normally do. I always, it's interesting. You can know the behavior of the organisms that you're looking at out here, and 8 times out of 10 they'll do what you speak about. But every now and then they're just determined to do the complete opposite of what you know that they usually do. Just to remind us that they do not, in fact, read the books, nor do they do everything. Oh, there! Now we can see the colors. Gorgeous. Thanks, buddy. See those blues. So for those of you, and then he flies off. Thanks. So for those of you that watch the show, often we've been doing the woodland kingfisher since he's come back a couple weeks ago. I believe our first sighting on camera for Juma was the 12th of November, if I'm remembering correctly, but you all would know or remember a little bit better than I would. Yeah, we've been enjoying him, and so every chance we get, we'd like to put him up on screen, and it's also nice for all of our new viewers to have a look at one of our summertime's most beautiful bird species. All right, so we're going to carry on. I couldn't get a glimpse of that red-chested cuckoo. He was just calling in the background, and we'll see if we can find our nemesis bird, the Colossus cuckoo. We're going into a good area for them. So while I'm busy bird hunting for all of you, we're going to head back up to the Mara and back up to Brent, who I'm sure has something amazing he would like to share.
Isn't this beautiful? Look at these little Ellie bulls and all the zebras behind them. Now I'm going to try get you a view. Oh, isn't that great? oh, that light, and they're walking straight towards us. But heading towards them is a very impressive beast. And he's a lovely big elephant tusker. There he is. I'm just going to move a little bit and see if they're going to greet each other. Just going to get opposite them. Oh, this is magic light with some big ellie bulls. And I think, unfortunately for, well, not for the elephants, but for Jahawi and myself, we might get a little bit damp. There's some rain coming from behind the ellies. Oh, he's not being very, well, this guy is being very nice, but the big tusker is not really being too forthcoming. He's wandering upstream through the rocks. You might be able to hear the wind that's bringing the rain towards us. You can see the clouds building, and that little bit of haze behind them is definitely a bit of wet weather. I'm going to try get us a better view of the tusker. Dave says, I can't move away from my laptop. Indeed, Dave, it's just been one of those afternoons. We're being truly spoiled. Now, he's put his head back in a bush he's feeding, but now hopefully we can get a view of those lovely long teeth when he turns around. Hi, guys. Hello, big boys. Oh, elephant bulls, I do love spending time with them. There you can see the sun shining off that long ivory on his left tusk. Mike's wondering, how large do elephant herds get? Well, Mike, it all depends. Elephant bulls tend to form little bachelor groups like this, or will be solitary and not really spend too much time with the herds. Herds are generally made up of small family groups, sort of 3 to 5, sometimes up to 6 or 7 adult females and their female offspring and their young male offspring that are below 15. And sometimes you get big congregations of elephants, herds that look like they're over 100 or 200, but that'll be actually be made up of a lot of smaller herds, and then they'll split after those congregations. These boys are so beautiful. Susan's wondering, are female elephants ever solitary? They can be, but it's very unlikely, and probably not by choice. If you see a female elephant by herself, she's probably been separated from her herd, and she'll probably look to try rejoin the herd. And you can hear the roar of the Mara River behind the ellies, as well as the roar of the wind that's come back to haunt us again. Not nearly as bad as yesterday though, but it is starting to pick up. Let's hope the rain stays away for a little longer. Well, as the ellies move off, we're going to do the same, see what else is around the Musiara Marsh. Bill's wondering, how tall is that tusker? Let's have one last look there. Sorry, Jahawi. He's probably about 4.5 meters at the shoulder, be my estimate. 4.3 meters at the shoulder, conservative. Big boy. We're going to let him carry on munching on the crotons. And we're going to head back down towards the Maasai Mara marsh, but we're going to go around the opposite side to where we were a little bit earlier. There's some interesting spots in this area, and I'm hoping we're going to see them shortly. I've just got to remember where the next road goes. Should be up above these rocks. I haven't been in this area for a very long time. Well, there's a hyena following an elephant. Well, not really, he's just walking behind an elephant. What are you doing, hyena? Oh, he decided walking too close to the elephant was a bad idea. He's going to go around. Another lovely big bull. Oh, the hyena's about to run past. There he is. Elephant taking no notice whatsoever. We've seen a lot of hyenas this afternoon. Oh dear. Are we about to get wet? I don't know. Okay, well, I negotiate my way through this rocky area. Let's go. Oh, that's a much bigger, deeper hole than it looked like. Let's go all the way back to South Africa to see what Ralph is up to in the sunshine.
So everyone, we're still driving around, as I've said, always during the middle of the day. It's always quite slow. But here we've stopped just next to a Hamerkop's nest, and it really looks just like a whole bunch of sticks thrown together, quite similar to that of the red-billed buffalo weavers. But this is a Hamerkop nest, and that is an Afrikaans word, Hamer meaning hammer and kop meaning head. So Hamerkop, it's a brown bird. It looks very similar to that of a hardy-daw ibis, and even in flight, a very similar sort of ungainly, flappy flight. But these birds, they take quite a long time to build these nests, and I'm sure that you can see that hole there. That is their sort of at the bottom of the nest, of the big rubble. They build that little hole, and right at the last second they will fly up to that nest, and at the last second they tuck their wings in and they shoot into that little hole there. So, and it's quite big on the inside. It's got quite a big chamber. They will line it with mud and feces, and a lot of the other birds will actually use the top of that nest. Owls and vultures and eagles, they will use that as a nesting site on top as well. So the Hamerkop actually fulfills quite a big niche for a lot of other birds. If they can't find a nice flat platform, or there's no cliffs or rocks around, they will then come to nest on top of Hamerkop's nest. But the pairs will actually come back each year generally, and keep building on top of this nest. But they can go off and make alternative nests, and then you can have other birds like the pygmy falcons and all sorts start to nest in the side or nest inside that region of the hole there that they've vacated. So very interesting. And Hamerkops, they generally feed on small fish and frogs. So when you have these nests like this, they're generally not far from water, and they're normally made in nice big jackalberries, big trees like jackalberries. Wendy, a question coming from Wendy: how big is a Hamerkop? Well, if you have an idea of how big a hardy-daw ibis is, or any ibis, they're not very big birds, but they're not very small either. They're sort of in the region of about 35 to 45 centimeters. In inches, we're talking at about 10 inches big. So they're not huge birds. So when you look at the nest, it's quite incredible how they've built such a big nest in comparison to the size of the bird. Now, as I was saying, they like to eat little fish, but their favorite food are little frogs and tadpoles. So they will always build these nests very close to water and along riverine edges in big trees, like I was saying, jackalberries, sometimes in leadwoods. This is obviously a dead tree, but they do generally need to put it in a nice big fork. And they actually, there's a lot of folklore with the local Shangaan people around the Hamerkops. You know, they respect them very much because of this building of this nest and how they fulfill such a big niche within their environment. So, as I was saying, we're just on our way to try and see what else we can find. I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update, and this is what we spotted on the way. But we're going to continue on a little bit. We're sort of just going through a little bit of a drainage line here, and we've just come past the Chitwa Lodge and the Chitwa Dam. But we're going to continue on now, and you can see as we drive along here, this sort of vegetation always changing. And the question coming, do Hamerkops tolerate other Hamerkops? You know, generally they would tolerate, but they're not extremely territorial, but they will tolerate other Hamerkops, but you don't generally find too many in the same area. You know, they're not heavily populated kind of birds, so you know there's not a whole lot of Hamerkops. They're not prolific breeders, so you know they'll only breed with 2 or 3 in a year, and if one of them or 2 of them survive, that's quite a good success rate. But so you're not generally seeing too many Hamerkop in any particular area, but very, very particular kind of bird. And with that nest, I think the only second to them in the size of the nest that is built is that of the sociable weavers, and they're only tiny little birds like this, but they make their nests in the deserts of Namibia. Now, not sure if Noelle has found you anything, but we're going to cross to her for the time being while I continue on and see what we can find.
Ralph, I have found a tree, something that the birds need to nest in. I worked with 2 gentlemen. One was a big tree guy and one was a big bird guy, and they used to have these long debates after some tree or the bird. Say, oh, but the tree only started growing there because of the bird, depending on the type of tree it was. But for me, I like them both equally the same. They're both important parts of the ecosystem, and this particular tree is one of my all-time favorites. This is a Ledwood tree, Combretum imberbe. So Ledwoods live to be around about 1,000 years, and then when they die, they stay standing for up to about 100 years. Then it'll fall over, and it takes, I believe, about another 50 years to decompose. This is very, very, very dense wood. So it has a very light-colored bark. It almost reminds me of the color of elephant skin or rhino skin. I lean a little bit more towards the elephant because it's a little bit wrinkly. Rhinos tend to have a smoother skin to them. And then you've got these big, beautiful branches coming off. If you notice, Deb, can you do where it makes the fork, and then there's the one that goes to the left, and you can see all of the coppicing coming off the top? Ah, perfect. So on that limb, you guys can all see the major fork, and then on that limb, and then we can go up and to the left. Perfect. You see all these little branches coming off and growing off this, what looks to me to be a part of the tree that is sort of dying off. You can actually see the new growth coming there. Amanda, you're asking if this tree flowers. Amanda, that is a super interesting question. I've only ever seen it with the Samoras, with the seed pods. I've never actually seen a flower, and now that I'm talking out loud to you, I'm racking my brain, but having quite the Noel moment about it. My file 13 is not engaging. I'm so sorry. So I believe when they do, you know what, we were chatting with Steph about this on a bushwalk the other day, about how very little we see Combretum flowers. And yes, of course, most trees need to flower, and we were chatting about how we have actually never smelled a combretum flower, and that day on walk we actually got it. And I was talking with Steph after we went off air. I was like, I don't think I've ever seen a combretum flower. Now that particular combretum, a combretum is a type of bush willow, and also this Ledwood here, I believe, was a red bush willow. And so yes, this Ledwood, being a combretum, would have flowers, but I cannot for the life of me think if I've ever seen them. I've only ever seen the seed pods. See, there's something new every day. So now, this tree is a conserved tree. It used to be used for, oh gorgeous, we're getting that pale morph. Wahlberg's has just landed beautifully in our Ledwood tree and called for us. Not the Marshall's eagle. I had such a slip of tongue yesterday. This is in fact our Wahlberg's eagle. It's the female. Her nest is, I believe it's the female. Her nest is on the other side. The reason why I believe it's the female, she's slightly bigger than the partner she's with, who is the dark morph. So this tree is a conserved tree. They used to use it for railway sleepers, the wood, and also to make furniture. But in South Africa, you're no longer allowed to cut this down. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, darling. We're no longer allowed to cut it down for furniture or for railway sleepers for any reason like that, because it takes them so long to grow that if you just cut them down willy-nilly, you're going to be left with no Ledwood trees eventually. And the other interesting thing that I love about this tree that helps me figure out sort of how tall it is in relation to sort of the ecosystem around it, and I know that's going to sound a little bit funny, but just work with me here. As tall as it grows up, the root structure goes straight down the opposite direction, similar to how you would have a reflection of a tree in water, and it would sort of reflect and then come down. That's how it goes down. So I would guesstimate that this tree is roughly about 8 meters high, and it's, so let's say that's 8 yards roughly high, because it's about 3 foot to a meter, and I believe a yard is about 3 foot. And just to give you an example of how tall it is, I will run over there just now. Philip, you're asking, is this the undying tree that James talked about? Is that correct, Faith? I think that was your question, Philip. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced the question there. Philip, I would guess that this is that tree, but I actually didn't hear or see when James was discussing that. So that would be my guess. And yeah, I mean, this is a very, very long living tree, so with that thought process, I would guesstimate that that's it. Let me just give you an example of how tall it is. So I'm 5'9", so that's roughly 174 centimeters. So that's under 2 meters, and that's how tall it is. It's huge. It's absolutely ginormous. But they can get even taller, and they can get even bigger. I would guesstimate that this tree is only a couple of 100 years old. I don't think it's anywhere near the end of its growth rate. It definitely has some few years to get to where it needs to be. All right, so we are in the Mulwati, and we're down here looking for cheeky little leopards in the shade, but we're also here looking for cuckoos, because cuckoos like to hide in thicker bushes, and I'm hoping to find some to show to you on the camera. Let's carry on our merry way. And see if we get lucky. Seb, will you look to our right? I don't want to drive past a leopard. That would make me sad. Alright, from a female to another, to Jamie, who is also driving around. Not in riverbeds like this. She's on the beautiful plains of the Maasai Mara, and I'm sure she has some wonderful that she wants to tell you all. Well, we'll search for cheeky little and sneaky little leopards.
So many things I'd love to tell you all. Well, most importantly, unfortunately, as you can see, the clock started ticking and it was time for us to leave the Four Musketeers. Hopefully they'll still be in the area and all together tomorrow, because I didn't achieve what I wanted to, which was just a screenshot of all 4 of them walking towards us. All 4 of them roaring would have been even better, but I was going with something I hoped might be realistic. But they weren't showing any signs of moving. I don't have a ranger on the back with me today because we've been out for... Well, we've been out since 6:30, so 12 hours. It's quite a long time for a ranger to be out with us. We do those sorts of times overnight, but during the day it's a long time for them to be cramped up in the back of the vehicle. So I don't have a ranger with me, which means I have to race back for gate closing time at 6:30. I feel like we've accomplished a lot, Manu. We found the leopard. We found that leopard 30 seconds to the end of the sunrise safari. I even tried to ask Kirsty for a link, but we were just too late. Just. Oh, waterbuck. Pretty waterbuck. Just have to show you because it looks so pretty and clean. There's been lots of rain here. We missed it entirely. Do not ask me how. But a quick, brief look at a very pretty waterbuck. And since it has a heart-shaped nose, pea heart, no, I did not identify the mystery creature from yesterday. I honestly, I have no idea. I really don't. If Craig hadn't seen it, I would really have started to question my own sanity at this point, because now it's almost a blur and a flash of a memory. It was such a brief period of time that we saw it. And if this waterbuck knows what it was, well, he ain't telling. Tafasa waterbuck, very, very pretty animals, I feel. Stark white facial markings. And of course, when he turns around, if he turns around, which I don't think he's going to do. Oh, there we go. Instead of the white ring around the bottom like the South African waterbuck, just a solid white bottom. There we go, Dan. You wanted to know if they're found in South Africa. Different type of waterbuck, but yes, they are. So the waterbuck in South Africa have a white ring, and hopefully Noel or Ralph can find you one. Whereas the waterbuck here have the white bottoms. I'm just going to move out of the way of this vehicle because I imagine they're in about as much a hurry as I am. Never mind, they found no way around. Sawa. Mzuri sana. Habari? Pardon? Manu. Sawa. Bye-bye. Thanks, Manu. Manu's in the back going, we're live. And our waterbuck ran away. That's okay. So yes, it is... You do get waterbuck in South Africa, and as I said, they look slightly different. The ones here have also got a much more red-brown tone to their coat, I feel, than the South African waterbuck, which are grey. Okay, foot flat again. I'm trying to think, I'm trying to give an honest answer to Fred about the largest herd of antelope I've ever seen. I'm big silly. I know the answer to that. Fred, the largest herd I have ever seen of an antelope was over 100,000 wildebeest as part of the Great Migration a few months ago. Wildebeest is an antelope, it counts. So that is the largest herd I've actually probably seen, that was a conservative estimate, I've probably seen over 200 or 300,000 wildebeest together on certain days, all together in one herd. So the Great Migration consists of over 1 million wildebeest that move from Tanzania into Kenya. But they don't all move as one body of animals. You get large herds, you get smaller herds, you get scattered herds. that move at different times. But essentially, during that whole process, over a million wildebeest, couple of 100,000 zebra, couple of, not so much this year, 100,000 Thompson's gazelles and some eland as well, take part in the Great Migration. I can't believe it even took me that long to vaguely think of that. Now, I'll tell you something, our sunset from this angle is nothing really to write home about, in as much as the sunset in Africa can never be boring, but apparently Brent's is even lovelier.
There we go, magnificence that like only the Mara can produce, with that sun and cloud, and also a lot of wildebeest. There we go, there's the sun. Isn't that gorgeous? We can hear in the distance, we can just hear the canoeing of canoes. And you can hear the wind buffeting through, just coming out below that cloud. Very, very special. Roassa would like to know, do I prefer sunrises or sunsets? Well, Roassa, I am partial to each equally. I like both, and it is. Oh, I can't actually choose between a sunrise and a sunset. Each have their own special things. Now, as I said, we're sitting here on the eastern side of the Mosiara Marsh, and I said the loiter herd of wildebeest stretch. And we can only see probably a third of what's actually here at the moment. And as we move further and further to the left, you just see they keep going and they keep going. Now, there is a possibility they might stay in the Mara this year. So I might be spending quite a lot of time around here. They were mostly around Talek a few weeks ago, but it looks like the lovely green grass that is sprouted after the rain in this area has brought them down towards Mosiara, as well as a lot of zebra. And there's a herd up on top of that ridge that is almost thick with wildebeest. And just see how many there are. Keek is wondering, when does the next big migration happen? Keek, the migration is constantly happening. It is currently there's about 250,000 wildebeest in the loiter herd, which is the herds that we're still seeing at the moment. The main body of wildebeest is the Serengeti migration. Are those lions? Sorry. Or was that my eyes playing tricks on me and it's just a zebra in golden light? No, it's a zebra. Sorry, I thought I saw a lion there for a second. No, it's a zebra. Oh dear, I got quite excited. But that is still quite beautiful. It was coming out of a hole, so it looked a little bit lower than it was. But, sorry, so the main migration is now currently somewhere in Tanzania, making its way towards the southern plains around Ndutu, where they will give birth in about February and then start the long trek back up to Kenya. And they should arrive in July at the earliest. June or end of June, July. Isn't that gorgeous? Okay, well, we're going to start trundling home because home is all the way on top of that escarpment, and we've probably still about an hour and a half to 2 hours away from camp. And the wind is coming. It looks like we're lucky. The rain is going to miss us this time. Seems like you guys have got some great screenshots of that beautiful sunset. And it's going to be interesting to see how everything changes over the next few months, whether the loiters are going to hang around or they're going to loiter their way across to the loiter hills. But while we ponder that, let's go look at the sunset Jamie's looking at.
We have a lovely sunset to show you as the wind howls away, bringing in, I think, more rain for the evening, which is good. It was getting a little bit dusty out here. And Manu's actually made it look nice. Look nice. Of course it looks nice, but he's made it look really stunning. So, big thumbs up to Manu for doing full justice to a sunset that I can't believe, how terribly rude of me. I can't believe I said it was nothing to write home about. And shocking, Jamie. Always should take time to look at the sunset. Brr. Chilly. Very beautiful. Now, unfortunately, in this world full of care, as much as I would love to stop and stare, we have no time. I'm sorry, Manu. It was beautiful. We had the opportunity. What do you think, everyone? Was Manu's sunset better than Jahawi's sunset? Not that you can... not that that's really a fair comparison, given that they have what they have to work with. Ah! Okay, we're gonna go racing up the hill. We're running out of time rapidly. Let's send you across to our team in South Africa where Noel is driving about.
If you go straight in. Hi everybody, so as we came up, I saw this little bee eater and he's caught something in his mouth and he's busy killing it. I'm just trying to direct Seb in, so Seb, if we go straight over my shoulder, straight to that scraggly little bush, about 10 meters in, up a bit, go up, here, it's in here, there he is. Thanks, Seb. Oh, it didn't catch something. Oh, well, sorry everybody, that wasn't very private. that was a little mating pair of little bee eaters. That's what happens when I don't use my binoculars. But now, Seb, if you go sort of here-ish, they should be right around in there. I think maybe a little bit closer. Sorry, let's just zoom out a little bit. There we go. Perfect. There's our little bee eater. Thank you, Sebastian. Oh, beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. Yellow under the chin there, bright yellow, green, and he's teeny tiny with a tiny little forked tail. And by teeny tiny, I mean, what is this in inches? 5 inches? Seb says, I don't know, let's say 5 inches, and he's just gone back to his other branch. So, and there's another one that's landed in the next spot. So Daryl, you're curious about where the ears are on that bird. So Daryl, when it turns its head a little bit, can you see where that black stripe goes? So towards the end of that black stripe that goes through the eye, the ear openings will be right around in there, as far as I know. I could be wrong.
Keeps on flying, coming back.
Yeah, Seb's saying keeps flying, coming back. That's called hawking. Flying up, trying to catch something, and then coming back. This is one of my favorite bee eaters. My all-time favorite bee eater is a swallow-tailed bee eater, which I have not seen yet this season. And all of my travels across southern Africa, I have yet to pick it up for this year. I have seen it before, just not this year. But this little bee eater, he is with us all year round. He's in southern Africa pretty much all year round and always puts on a good show. The show we had a little bit earlier might be a bit too much, but this is live. We are interactive. We can't script any of this. It just happens as it happens. And basically what he's doing, especially as it's cooled down a little bit, he's flying off, trying to catch something, and then flying back. There's the the mate down there, and you see that he comes right back. Not always to the exact same branch, but for now this is their little hunting perch that they are enjoying. Bit of preening there, making sure that the feathers are all in the right places. So they'll be hunting things like bees and wasps and dragonflies and butterflies in particular, sort of flying insect. Paula, you're asking what bird I most often see in the bush. Paula, it depends on the time of year. It depends on the habitat. Each bird has its own special niche. Currently, in the past few days, the birds I've been seeing the most have been that Wahlberg's eagle pair that we keep bumping into, and the Woodland Kingfisher, and crested francolin and helmeted guinea fowl. Those are the most that I've been seeing, but it just happens to be the areas that I'm going to, and they're there. Oh, and Egyptian geese. I've seen so many Egyptian geese. But yeah, it really depends. So something that we might have here. Oh, fantastic. Thanks, Seb.
I gave it to the other one, I think. No?
I don't know. I didn't catch it. Let's keep with them and see what they do. We might get some good. So when they do catch something, they come back, and especially if it's larger, they'll come and smack it on that branch and kill it and then swallow it. I once watched a little bee eater catch a rather large dragonfly, and that dragonfly came and killed it on the branch, and then he starts to swallow it, but then it's so big compared to his body that he gets it sort of down the mouth, but then half of it's still sticking out, and he was just sitting there like this, trying to figure out, well, what does he do? Does he spit it back up, or does he? I'm sorry, it was absolutely hysterical. Are they still hunting there, Seb? A little bit. I've got some butterflies over here for you guys. Oh my goodness. So I don't know if I'll be able to show you. Seb, can you see this gorgeous butterfly? Can I move myself? I'm moving myself. Oh. Now, I don't know which butterfly this is, but look at those stunning, stunning colors. Orange and yellows and reds. Actually, sorry, it's gone. Did you find it?
It's gone again.
Oh, it's gone again. So the orange that was on there, that bright sort of almost red orange, and then the yellow, and then the black, usually those colorations mean that it's highly toxic. So it's known as aposematic coloration, so it's warning. So anything that is black and red, or black and yellow, or black and white, or black and orange is usually meant for saying, don't eat me, I'm toxic. And then you even get some insects that will mimic colorations like that, or mimic the type of patterns on the wings to sort of get predators to not want to choose them because they look so much like the other one. So you'll see that with sorry, the name just skipping me. You get it with monarch butterflies and the diadems. They're the two that do that often. Yeah. Nikki, you're right. At last, a butterfly. I know that Tristan was trying super hard to find butterflies the other day. Well, today has been super, super, super warm. We've also been passing some of the white berry bushes. They're flowering, and then there's been some different plants that I can see have some leaves out that usually attract a lot of the butterflies to lay their eggs on, especially butterflies with aposematic coloration, so that they have a little bit of toxins in those plants, and then they lay their eggs, and then their larvae will feed on those plants and then become toxic themselves as they carry on through life. I'll see if I can find a few. I did a really amazing butterfly course last year, and some of these eggs for the butterflies are like the size of a pin. Sometimes you need a microscope to see them, and each species has certain plants that it likes to use or certain trees that it likes to use, and so I'm going to go through my notes on that, and then hopefully over the next few days with this gorgeous, gorgeous weather that we have, we'll be able to pick up a little bit more. And our cameras are so amazing. I'm hoping if we can find big enough eggs that we might be able to get some on camera. That would be absolutely fantastic. Now, have our bee eaters, they're still just sitting there. Well, one's cleaning its beak. There we are. There they are. So one was there, it cleans its beak there. So it might have caught something in the interim while we were busy. Paula, you're wondering if I have a favorite place in Juma yet? Paula, I don't have a specific favorite place at the moment. Every day I go out and I have a place that I feel like going to. I really enjoy Chitwa Dam. I enjoy Treehouse Dam. I enjoy, this is going to be another dam, I enjoy Twin Dams. But yeah, I haven't found an absolute favorite place. I pretty much like everything. I really, you know what, Paula, I'm going to go with today. My favorite place has been the Mawati because it's been so cool. Because underneath that sun that we were driving on, there's lots of water that's underneath there. And so it cools everything down. Also, the big trees giving shade. So that's my favorite place for today. All right, everybody, I know we love to do screenshots every day. I think while we're busy with these bee eaters, I think, especially if they turn their heads either opposite directions or in a similar direction, if the light catches it nicely, this would be my choice for screenshot for the day thus far. I think I would wait for them each to be looking opposite directions as their bodies are entwined a little bit like that. Daniel, you're asking if we ever just break into songs from The Lion King. So, Daniel, a very dear friend of mine sent me a link, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, from Jimmy Fallon. And there was this whole skit that they did about misheard songs. And I do this in my head often. So, in the beginning of The Lion King, I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher it. They go, ah, Sabanya. And then they carry on. And in this skit, a woman was convinced that they were singing Pennsylvania as the opening line. And I do play that little bit in my head often and laugh like this. I'm sorry. It's probably the funniest thing that I've heard in a really long time. Yeah, and then I'm sorry. And then the Hakuna Matata song sometimes comes up because Hakuna Matata is a phrase that comes out of Swahili, but we also use the word matata down here, so it does pop up from time to time. That other one I was telling you about. Look, I'm crying. Sorry. All right. So goodbye, bee eaters. Let's carry on. You're gonna give me the giggle. I have the giggle fits now because I'm just gonna think of that for the rest of the cave drive. All right. So I have still been unsuccessful in showing you a cuckoo on camera. I'm still convinced we're going to do it. I also, sadly, we had the wild dogs on the property, but we had gremlins. We had gremlins around the wild dogs, so we couldn't show them. And then I haven't heard much about the cheetah tracks we were talking about. I do want to check on the cheetah tracks for now. And see if maybe they've crossed over into our area, because wild dogs and cheetah is something I have not been able to show you on camera yet, and it's part of my list along with honey badger, aardvark. Ooh, we had a long list. Honey badger, aardvark, buffalo. We've been asking for the buffalo for quite a while. We've got a long list going. All right, Rolf has a tiny little mammal he would like to share with you, so let's head on over to him while I keep laughing.
Okay, folks, yeah, as we've been driving along, we've been seeing a whole lot of squirrels running on the road, and this one we just thought we'd stop and have a look at him. Now, he's got a little hole there, and it seems it's been quite hot today, so it looks like he's just relaxing a little bit in the shade, but next to possibly a little nest there that he's taken on, and this tree that he's in looks like a knobthorn. And that's one of the biggest of the leaflets that you get of all the trees with the very similar leaves in this grouping of trees. But have a look at that little tree squirrel. You know, we only get these tree squirrels in this low-veld area, and then the red squirrel, but they're very rare. And we also use these little animals as our indicators for when there's snakes or any of the bigger birds of prey when they make those alarm calls. And I was doing it yesterday as we were driving along. I was also doing the alarm call. I won't do it just today, otherwise I'll kill the whole effect of it. But something else I'd like to point out to you, just on the right here, if Ian would go over to that, and you see this lovely tree that is here, riverbeds as well, lovely white trunk, and this is called the Ledwood tree. It's a very, very hard wood, extremely hard wood. That's why they call it a leadwood. And if Liam just stops there and goes up a little bit up to the right and a little bit out, you can see this branch that is dead. I'm just going to show you a little bit. That is a sacrificial branch, and what these trees do is they pump all their toxins into a branch like that. They call it a sacrificial branch. So any of the excess nutrients that they have in the soil, they'll then pump into those branches, and obviously then they sacrifice that one branch and saving the rest of the tree. Now I'm just going to continue driving, and as we drive along, I'm just going to tell you a little bit. You know, I spent a lot of time in Namibia, and up in the northwestern part of Namibia you have the semi-nomadic people and the Himba people, but an offshoot of those Himba people that still move around, almost similar to that of the Khoisan. They have a derivative of the Himbas called the Herero people, and the Latin name of that tree, the leadwood, is Acacia hereroense. Now the reason for that being is because the Herero people of the northwestern part of Namibia hold this tree in very high stead. They have a village, and the chief, see that they put their, have a like a wall on the outside of the village. They make a fence around it, and all the little houses, the little huts are dotted around in a circle with then the cattle kraal in the middle. Of that particular village, he will have his door, which is always open, and just outside his door, between the kraal and his house, he will have a fire where they will burn this leadwood. Now, I think we're just losing signal a little bit, so I'm losing my story here. If we get it back, I will continue. Okay, folks, we're just going to link to Noel. When we come back, I'll finish my story about the Hereros, the leadwood tree. So off to Noel for now.
Hello, I have somewhat gotten over my giggle fit. So. Oh, no, it's still there. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, everybody. Okay, well, apparently we're on a tree expedition this afternoon. I hear Ralph has also started telling you about a leadwood tree. So I'm going to stop at this tree here and see if you all can guess what tree it is. Don't forget, we are live, we are interactive, and we love your questions. Hashtag Safari Live on the Twitter and on the YouTube chat. What tree am I? And there's no I Spy with a triagama today, I promise you guys. I won't do that to you again. Notice the textures on the bark. Notice the discoloration on the bark. Notice as Seb pans up, you're going to see how very straight it is, and then as you get up towards the branches, they're going to veer off at almost a 90-degree angle, and it's going to be a lovely little spot that a leopard might like. Very beautiful, bright green crown. And then I don't know, Seb, are we close enough to zoom in on the leaves, do you think? Thanks everybody for loving my giggle. Apparently as well, my voice is slightly distorted today and is deeper than normal, the way you guys are hearing it. So we're just gonna call it my man laugh. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we can notice these leaves. At the tips of the branches you can see it, and they're sort of coming off on the side. just at the top there. I'm not seeing any fruits on the tree. Those fruits would be a giveaway, but this tree does have sexual dimorphism. You get male trees and female trees. I think Steph would disagree with me on that. I think we were having a chat the other day about whether or not there is sexual dimorphism or it's just different trees, and it was something interesting that I've been contemplating. So sometimes when I chat with you about different aspects of different organisms that we see out here, it's book learned, and sometimes it's learned from my own experience, and sometimes it's learned from other guides. And Steph's been in the industry a lot longer than I have, and so some of his contemplative moments I've found very interesting and have been sort of thinking about them a little bit, and that sexual dimorphism with trees has been one of them. I haven't decided what my decision is, but I am interested. Wendy says this is a leopard tree. Wendy, it is a tree that I also believe a leopard would like, although every time I pick one of these trees, Seb's showing the branch that he pictures the leopard on now, I would pick this tree and then the leopard's going to pick the silly little scraggly tree behind it. But no, this is in fact a marula tree. So the marula tree. Eric the poet, you guessed the marula. Well done. You win my smile. That's all I can give you. I unfortunately can't give you anything else. All right, marula trees. I know we talk about them a lot. They're a very fascinating tree, especially culturally. They use the bark from the male tree and the bark from the female tree. I've told the story once before, but I really love this story. I have a tracker that I used to work with who has many cows. I think he was up to about 30 cows at one point, and he always loved talking about this tree with guests because he loved talking about how when he found a male tree of this or a female tree, which bark he would choose to give to his cows, and they would make a drink out of it because that would depend on what type of baby they would have, a male baby or a female baby. And so it's very important for his breeding, and for him it's worked. That's why he has 30 cows, and I always find that interesting. It's also very interesting for me because a lot of my favorite things that I like to consume come from this tree. So marula juice is really, really, really good. It's also high in vitamin C, and then you can get marula jam, which is also delicious. And then there's a few alcoholic beverages that they make from it. One's a cream liqueur that's very similar to some of the cream liqueurs you would find overseas. And then another is very similar to moonshine. I would recommend that you don't drink that. That's not going to end very well. But yeah, it's a very, very useful tree. And it's also just pretty. And we've got a beautiful blue, blue, blue sky without a single cloud in the sky. And those vibrant brand new leaves that are popping with the green color are just pleasing to the eye. Sadly, the only thing that's wrong with this tree right now is that there's not our cheeky little leopard inside of it. But hopefully we will fix that as we carry on down the way. The question, I believe, is how can you tell if the tree is male or female? And then I'm so sorry I didn't catch the viewer's name. Sweet History, you're asking how can you tell if the tree is male or female? Sweet History, with this marula tree, the only way I know how to tell is whether it has fruits or not. If it has fruits, it should be a female. If it doesn't have fruits, it should be a male. If we're going by the book logic of it. And that's the only way to tell. So it is fruiting season at the moment. They're just starting to come up. And this tree does not have fruits. But now I'm going to pull back a little bit from my answer there and just say sometimes when we have bad rainy seasons, we don't get any fruits at all. So you wouldn't be able to tell. And then sometimes when we have really good rainy seasons, trees will fruit multiple times. So we have seen some of the marula trees with fruits on them already, but we haven't quite had enough rain as we would like. So it would be interesting to see if maybe some of the trees that have better access to groundwater and more nutritious soil would be fruiting already, and ones that don't might not be fruiting already, just as a thought to ponder. Okay, and away we go. Down our beautiful dusty highway in the middle of the bush, and we will see if we get lucky enough to have a leopard pop up in our marula trees. That's also something I forgot to mention, is when you start finding marulas, you usually find the next marula anywhere from sort of right next to it to up to about 400 meters. So again, a meter is very similar to a yard. We can work that out. And they're positioned like that. It helps with the cross-pollination when they're flowering, because if we go along with the idea that you get a male tree and a female tree, you need that cross-pollination between the two for everything to function and for the female trees to finally bear fruits. Oh, this light, we're starting to come into the really gorgeous golden hour. I don't know if anyone was watching last night with the sunset that we had with the Battler Eagles. I keep picturing it in my head, and it was just absolutely stunning. So we don't have any clouds, so our sunset tonight is going to be completely different from our sunset last night. We're still going to get beautiful colors, but it's not going to reflect in the way that it did last night, and we're not going to get, say, as vibrant a stream, as many different colors as we had, but it will still be gorgeous nonetheless. All right. Sorry, car, I am listening to you, but I'm not paying attention. You could hear poor Wendy was whining away. Please shift my gears. Here's an interesting marula tree. So this marula tree that's just on our left-hand side, its growth has been completely stunted by elephants. So it's been, well, I'm saying elephants, but it's been broken off at the top, just in there, and then the root system hasn't died, so it's just sort of kept growing off to the sides and coming up a little bit. So it'll either form a huge sort of scar, what's like a scar tissue there, and then keep growing up, or it's just going to look like this funny little stunted dwarf marula tree and sort of spread out to the sides there. The reason why I'm thinking elephants is just because it's quite a thin marula tree. It's not extremely old, and possibly a big male elephant, although it could have been horrible wind as well. But my gut feeling is saying elephant, so we'll stick with the gut. It is definitely a tree afternoon. I think we might have to find some other trees along our way as well. We had some beautiful torchwoods, but we have bypassed them. I'm sorry, I got really interested in this dwarf marula here. But down the way, I do know we have some other ones to chat about. So let's carry on and do that. I'm also excited because we had our big first rains that the flowers are going to start popping up soon. Sorry, Lisa Marie, you're asking what the different names for the prides are? Oh, who names them? So, who names all the animals? So, Lisa Marie, I am still new to this area. So the other places that I've worked in, the coalitions of male lions, the prides of lions, every single leopard, coalition of male cheetah, they get named for research purposes. And then here on the Sabi Sands, again, there's a similar vibe. You want to know who's mating with who, but I do know that with some of our other, like the Birmingham boys, for instance, have been given individual names, and I'm pretty sure, Chris, you can tell me if that's from us, from our side, from Safari Live. So in general, on a reserve that you work at, it will be management of the reserve and or the first guide to find the youngsters that will put out any names. And in general, you're not naming individuals, you're naming coalitions of males and prides as one name. So for instance, we've got the Nkuhumas, that's the name of the pride, and the Birmingham boys are the boys, and the Styx Pride is the pride name. Other than that, the individual things, when you're dealing with sort of characters like we are, helps us to tell our stories that we tell. And also, I mean, everybody watches them for so long, it feels like part of the family. So the Juma guides have given the Birmingham boys their individual names. Interesting question. Sorry, I've got, from my laughing fit, I think I've got something in my eye. I'm trying not to get myself started again. Oh, the giggles, the giggles, the giggles. All right, I'm not picking up any cheetah tracks, sadly. So Ralph's gremlins are not going away. They are sticking with him. I'm sort of heading up our eastern boundary here, and then we're going to head up to our northern boundary. I want to see if anything comes in from either side. If the cheetah were to come onto our property, it would be from from what they're telling me from the tracks on the other side, it would be from this boundary here. And then I've only noticed one set of male lion tracks coming back from Birmingham. Joy, as always, you are asking really interesting, very in-depth questions. So, Joy, your question, sorry, I have to stop to talk to you with this question because this question is a question that is not very briefly explained. It's something that's a little bit more in-depth. So, Joy, your question is, do we have an overpopulation of elephants in this area, or have the private game reserves in the greater Kruger area helped to alleviate the problem of elephant population numbers? So, Joy, in general, in the area we're in, so in the greater Kruger area, so you've got the Kruger National Park, and then on the western side you've got Timbavati, Klasiri, Bulule, Olifants, Sabi Sands, Kapama, Thorny Bush. I mean, there's a whole number of reserves that are private, sometimes singly owned, sometimes multiple owners on there throughout the western side. Some of them are fully open to the Kruger National Park, some are open to ones that are then open to Kruger Park, and some are still fenced off. But when we're talking elephant population numbers for this whole area, for the greater Kruger area, from what I've read and what I know, and this is a debate of contention because sort of, I would say 8 out of my 10 colleagues would say similar things to what I say, but then there's a couple who would say, now wait a minute, is that really true? So as far as I know, the general consensus is that the greater Kruger area has an overpopulation of elephants. And then there's been another side of research that's been done that said, hold on, wait a minute, no, our numbers are fine. And so, Joy, I do think that the add-on and the fence dropping between private game reserves who wanted to be just themselves to now opening up to the greater Kruger area, I do believe that has definitely helped. But I think in general, because within South Africa, there's only a small amount that is reserved for wilderness in such a large country. I mean, I think so South Africa is the size of 2 Texases together and then a little bit more. And if I'm remembering correctly, and I could stand corrected on this, I believe it's only 1/16 of the country is in wilderness areas. So there's not actually a lot of space. So we're very blessed to have this huge area here to maneuver and have the wildlife maneuver in, but it's not necessarily enough space. And we, unfortunately, in South Africa have a huge population of humans. There's close to 65 million people in South Africa, and I'm also counting in undocumented people. And because of that, we have no way to allow huge amounts of free roaming people up, or free roaming wildlife up and down and up and down. Like they do in, say, Kenya, up in the Maasai Mara, because our wildlife and our humans are abutted like this. And as you know, when it comes to human-wildlife conflict, it's the wildlife that usually ends up on the backside. So every reserve in South Africa has a fence at some point to help with the protection. Now for us, everything east of us is open. So Sabi Sands open right into the Kruger and sometimes in the Monuleni up top there, and then open into Mozambique for the most part. And then north of us is open from game reserve to game reserve to game reserve to game reserve. So it's, long story short, it's us, and then Manuleti, and then Timbavati, and then Klasiri, and then Olifants and Bulule, and then it cuts back into Kruger, and then when you get to the northern end of Kruger, it's open up into Zimbabwe, that side. So we have a lot of free movement, and then everything sort of west of us is up until sort of the tar road. Oh no, actually no, sorry, I'm a little bit farther south, working a little bit farther south than I'm used to, up until where the communities live is open, and then we've got a secure fence to keep the community safe from anything that might want to wander around there. So that was super long-winded, and I hope I answered as much as possible. But yeah, it's any different aspects that of elephants. There has been some settling down of that, but yeah, in general. So Joy, if you've got more questions about what I said, please send them through. We can keep carrying this on. As you know, I love conservation, and I love the aspects of conservation and sharing that with you. I do think it's something that's super important. But that being said, we've had our conservation moment for the afternoon. I think let's get back to the very serious business of safari, because as you know from my multiple bouts of laughter, it's so serious. Okay. And with Ralph's gremlins still popping up, you are stuck with me. I'm happy to be stuck with you, so I hope you're happy to be stuck with me. Sorry, Chris, go again? I'm so sorry, I'm having a really hard time. I've got you now. Thanks, Seb. Seb is just relaying that message. Thank you so much, Seb. That Joy, you're saying it was like you and I were on a Skype call and you're nodding your head. Yeah, that's good. I like that. I enjoy all of your questions, but it's also, Joy, I really like that question in particular this afternoon because it is a topic that is so in depth, and I don't always know how much is relayed over to other continents. It seems as if Ralph's gremlins have disappeared for now, so let's head over to him before they pop back up and see if he can finish his story for us.
Okay, folks, we've just picked up on a nice big male leopard's track, so we are doing that, that process of elimination. We had his track for quite a long time. We then saw that he veered off the road, but it seemed like he was maybe going in this direction, coming back again. So we hold out in hope that we can maybe pick up on him again. It seemed like quite a big male, so yeah, it seems like quite positive that we might pick up on something. But while we're looking for him and while we continue on that trail looking for the leopard, I just wanted to find that Ledwood story. So, as I was saying, the Herero people of Namibia, they hold that Ledwood in very high esteem. The chief, with the fence around his whole village, the chief has his house facing the kraal where they keep the cattle, which is also held in very high esteem. But between his house and the kraal, and they make the fire. We might be going for a little bit of low signals. So I'm just going to slowly just get out of this little hole here. Okay, sorry about that. So his house with his door open, always open to the kraal with the cattle, and he makes his fire in between. Now the fire is where they actually talk with the ancestors. So they never let that fire go out. The chief has his door open towards the ancestors, and using the Ledwood, that fire will never go out because they always put on a little bit of wood each day and that fire continuously burns. If there is a problem with the village or somebody is sick, the chief will always go to the fire and talk to the ancestors and ask for advice or ask for help, or whatever the case might be. But the fire, the connection with the ancestors. So that is why that tree has been called after the Herero people in Namibia. It's interesting. And I see as we go along here, a little bit of elephant tracks. So everything's going to happen. We've got the leopard tracks, elephant tracks. It's lovely being on safari out in the Kruger National Park of South Africa. We never know what's going to happen. Okay, it seems like the signal is going down a little bit again. We're going to continue trying to find this leopard, maybe even some elephant, but let's link back to now until I get better signal.
Hello, I'm so sorry that Ralph is having gremlin after gremlin after gremlin. Ralph, I know what it feels like, but I am very happy to chat with everybody. I have found something very small I want to show you. And it involves a lot of creepy crawlies. We've got a communal spider's nest here. So inside of this nest will be hundreds of spiders, and then the outside webbing helps collect, or catch rather, their prey, and then they come out and they feed on it, and then go back in and live inside there. So they take these bits of leaves and that are at the end of these branches, and on this branch, and make their nest in. I'm trying to remember or think, has anyone seen the movie Aliens? Because for some reason this reminds me of that movie. I saw one today. I had to go into town very quickly this morning just to ship some things off to our head office, and I saw one on my way coming home that had to have been about 4 times this size. So this one is about the size of a plum, or roughly the size of a plum. And the one that I saw today was probably about the size of 2 rugby balls / 2 American footballs stuck together. It was really, really, really huge. So one of the reasons why I'm stopping and showing you this very interesting spider's web is because, 1, it's interesting, but then 2, from our vantage point, I'm hoping to get a little bit of our sunset. Seb, what do you think? Should we stick here, or do you think we should travel on down? Because we've got a couple minutes, but it's going to come soon. Should we try down a little bit lower?
Right now.
All right. Seb says, no, Noel, you're very silly. It's too bright. Let's carry on. There is a spot just down the road where we keep picking up on zebra. So I think let's head down there and see if we can pick them up. So we are going to carry on with our mid-evening meander. I can hear a red-crested coron in the background. I'm not sure if everyone remembers the red-crested coron is that little bustard-type looking bird who makes his call, and he flies straight up in the air, and then he tucks his wings in and then falls to the ground, and just before he gets there he opens them again. All of it's to court ladies. Most of what the male species does out in the bush is to court the ladies. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But we've got this beautiful green grass that's, you can just see it on the right-hand side here, that's sort of sprouted this bit of burning that they did. Now, usually this is where this would attract things like Impala, things like Impala, and birth, and cheetah, and leopard, but let's go with the cheetah. Seeing this afternoon are going to come and start hunting. Let's head over south, and I'll try and tell these gremlins to go away.
Okay, folks, we're having a little bit of trouble with the signal today. It seems like Noel and I are both driving in regions where the signal is a little bit low. Let's just switch off here and just have a look. In front, we've got couple of Impala, the little couple of the babies. There they go running off into the bush. But we've had a lot more babies being dropped in the last couple of days, and it's been absolutely fantastic to see all the little youngsters that are coming through now. There's another little one there, and they are ever so alert. And we were also just watching because we thought maybe they were, a little bit overly alert. So we were just seeing if maybe that leopard was in the area. But it seems like they were alert in the area that they're moving in. So we're not quite sure. Mommy's having a look down there in the riverbed. See that little tufts, the black tufts on the back of her ears? Makes it nice and easy for the little baby to be able to follow her. And obviously those black lines on the back of her bum, that also makes it very easy for the little baby to be able to follow. Now you also do realize we can't see, and yes, I do agree with all the viewers that those little babies are absolutely cute as can be. Another one coming through there. Sun starting to go down slowly, and does become a little bit scary for these little chaps now. They've got to fend for their lives. As soon as that sun goes down, the leopards obviously do move around looking for food. So mommy's got to be on the top of her game to be able to keep looking out for the little ones. But it does. It always makes sense how these impala drop their calves all at a very similar time, and enabling, because a lot of them do get taken out by predators, but at the same time, with there being so many of them, there's always going to be a whole lot of them that do go through. The sun's starting to go down now, and we're just listening to the little birds calling in the area, and see that sun over there starting to dip down over the horizon with a silver cluster leaf just in front. Right, I think we're going to continue on a little bit. Jackie, how long will the impala babies suckle for? They will suckle for a couple of months, 1 or 2 months, but within that time they already do start feeding a little bit, so they do get weaned in that period. They don't suckle for very long at all. They're one of those animals that need to sort of be moving very fast and being weaned very quickly away from the mother. They need to be independent because of that obvious problem with the predators. They need to grow up as fast as possible. I'm just coming down over here towards the waterhole. Seems we've got a little bit of action, a little bit more animals. A question from Debbie: have I ever seen a live birth in the bush? And since we were watching impala there, yes, I have. It doesn't happen very quickly, and I'm just going to slow down here from a distance, and if VM can just have a look over there on the other side of the waterhole. So Debbie, to answer your question, yes, I have seen quite a few animals being born. I've seen impala being born, I've seen wildebeest being born, but my utmost and utter favorite would have been I saw a little baby desert elephant being born in the northwestern part of Namibia, and that for me is the highlight of my career, being a guide. Now here we've just got a little bit of a grouping of wildebeest that have come in, and they're all doing a little bit of grazing. Now, as you know, you guys have been crossing backwards and forwards between us in South Africa and the Kruger National Park and in the Maasai Mara with them, with the migrations of the wildebeest and the zebra. Now, it's quite interesting to note. I'm sure you would have been told or you found out about it, but here's a question for you guys as well. Why would the wildebeest and zebra be moving in those migrations together? That's a very interesting question, and I'll give you a couple of minutes to think about it, and I'll tell you in a minute. But you can see that they are grazing in quite a specific sort of zone on the grass, and that's a little bit of a clue as to why the zebra and wildebeest move together. Now, the Latin name gnu comes from that the noise that they make, that sort of so it's quite indicative of the sound that they make. And there's a nice bull nyala moving with them. You often have the animals moving together quite simply because it's safety in numbers, but with the wildebeest and the zebra, there's something quite in particular that makes them move together, and it's more so the wildebeest that move with the zebra. Not so much the zebra that move with the wildebeest. So it's a little bit of a conundrum there, but it's kind of like the zebra, whether is he black with white stripes or white with black stripes. But in this case, with the wildebeest and the wildebeest do follow the zebra for a particular reason, and let's see if anybody knows why. In the meantime, I'm just going to move a little bit closer, and let's have a look a little bit closer to them. We can get Bit of a closer view while you guys think about that. The sun's still going down, starting to get into that predator time once again. And as you see, as we drive along here, you can see it's quite unusual how these branches have been packed along the road. You know, it's very eroded. So what the conservationists will do in the area, that has been packed here for to stop the erosion of this area. So they'll cut the bushes that do bush encroachment, and then they'll pack it in these eroded areas. So it's a bit of a dual purpose. Alden, where do wildebeest sleep? Well, it's quite a difficult one being an antelope in the African plains. It almost seems like they never sleep. You will often see them lying down a little bit during the heat of the day, but it's more so that they're actually ruminating like cows do. They will sit down. They need to rest to fulfill the function of ruminating, you know, chewing the cud, regurgitating those cud balls, and then chewing it and swallowing it down a little bit again. But they don't generally actually go to sleep because of the predator problem. So if you're an antelope, it's quite a tiring work because you don't actually get to sleep. So if that answers your question, Alden, you don't particularly want to be an antelope because you're hardly ever going to sleep. You might rest a little bit, but if you close your eyes, you might be food. There comes some guinea fowl going through again. And you were talking about the Lion King a little bit earlier. They were quite prevalent there on the Lion King running through. Also between the wildebeest in that lovely little kiddies movie. I love to call them the bush chickens because they literally are almost exactly like chickens that live in the wild. And they will also now time for them to start looking to go and roost. They don't stay on the ground. They will at this time of the evening start flying up into the trees and vying for their little roosting spots. You can see them. That is the helmeted guinea fowl. See that nice little red helmet on top of their heads. Fascinating birds, these. And also help us, like the squirrels, very often to, if they start alarm calling, they also indicate predators for us. So we use all the indicators when we're walking or driving in the bush. If we hear anything alarm calling and we can identify that it's a bird or a squirrel or another animal, mammal, alarm calling, and we want to follow up on that and find out why is it alarm calling. And generally they will alarm call for snakes or for big predators or for birds of prey, etc. So we have to be part of the bush. Because if we don't listen to those alarm calls, we can either walk into trouble or we won't be able to find the leopards that we've been looking for. So that was why a little bit earlier when we were driving along looking at those tracks of those leopard, we were listening out for alarm calls as well. Now here we see these wildebeest lying down. Wildebeest are prolific dust bathers. Right, we've got those answers exactly. So the answer to why zebra move, why wildebeest move with zebra, it is definitely because your zebra are bulk grazers and they will eat the top part of the grass, and the wildebeest, they're more selective grazers. They like to eat the bottom part of the green shoots more lower down to the ground. So the zebra literally go before the wildebeest and prepare the grass for the wildebeest. And you see how he's pushing his head onto the ground there. That's actually a territorial marking what he's doing. He's got a gland there on his forehead and near to his eyes, and he wipes that on the ground, also scraping his feet, and you see now he's defecating as well. So that's a territorial bull that's marking his territory there. See, he scratched it open to make it a nice fresh patch of earth, and then He wiped his head on it, wiping the gland and the scent on the floor, and then also defecating on it as well. So he's got a visual mark, and he's also got a scent mark, and that is definitely a territorial bull marking there. Now that's quite interesting as well. When do we call a bull and a cow, or a ram and an ewe? Generally the cutoff line is around 100 kilograms. So animals that are over 100 kilograms, we refer to them as cows and bulls, and anything below 100 kilograms we call ram and ewe. Now the nyala is the one that is stuck in the middle, which is then the male is a bull, but the female is a ewe, because the male is over 100 kilos, but the female is below 100 kilos, so she's a ewe, which is quite interesting. See, there's a kudu in the background. It's like a young male. Definitely a very young male, that. He's only starting to get to the first turn of his horns, so he's only a couple of years old. And as our sun goes down and the color starts to turn a beautiful array of blues and pinks and hues, I think we're going to go over to Noel with the hyenas.
I'm super excited. So yes, I think maybe 3 weeks ago, one of my very first game drives, we came here and there was 2 youngsters, and I was saying that I had been told that there was 2 different litters. One was older than the other. And so we've got the older one that's here beautifully, but I'm just going to back, because I just saw them now. I didn't see them as we came in. I was too focused on this. We've got the other little ones right in front of us. I'm just going to back up a titch. So we'll be able to see nicely the difference between roughly 3 months. So I think someone said these guys were born sort of mid-July, so that's roughly, really, are you going to come play right there? So roughly 3 months old, and then that other one is looking to be about 6 months old. So you see how these ones are super furry. They still have a lot more black on the bottom part. Are you going to be nice to your sibling or mean to your sibling? What we're seeing right now is a little bit of dominant submissive behavior. The one on top sort of standing over, the one on the bottom lying down and putting its side and a little bit of its neck out. So I'm going to guess that the one on top is most likely the female. And then there's a little bit of love there. So a bit of dominance, and then I still love you. Very interesting behavior. Hyenas are absolutely fantastic. Their intricate social systems, to me, are some of the most complex, and they are well documented, but I don't know how well understood they are. I mean, there's a lot of time and effort that goes into them. Are you chewing on the side of your sibling there? That's what it looked like to me. I mean, yeah, oohs and ahs and cute for sure, everybody. I agree with that 100%. We're going to miss the sunset tonight, but that's fine. This cuteness is well worth it. Are you now biting your sibling? Look at that. Yeah, that one's like, nope, that's too much. Too much for me. So they have, a lot of people assume wrongly that hyenas are hermaphrodites. They're not actually hermaphrodites. The female's genitalia is just elongated to simulate a penis, but it is, they're not. There's males and there's females. I'm sorry that the side of the car is in the shot. They are moving closer to us. I don't want to start the engine and scare them away. I want them to, because we've given them space, they're then now welcome to move into our space. So just so you guys are aware, everything is fine, no worries. So they do this really elaborate greeting. Now remember, hyenas are matriarchal. It's the females that run the whole system, and males are kicked away. The ones that are related are kicked away, and then go off and mate with other females, and they're not allowed near den sites or anything like that. So when they're greeting each other, when they're little like this, or let's say when the adults comes back, they do this elaborate sort of squealing, giggling noise, and then they'll lift their legs and they'll touch the genitals and rub on the genitals, and that's all done within the hierarchy in certain sequence, as well as with the adults in a certain sequence, as well as with the younger ones done as well. And you'll notice that the youngsters, especially the female cubs of the matriarch, the leader of the hyenas, will be given some sort of deference when she is greeting elders and elders are greeting her. It's an interesting concept. So we've just looked at those little ones here. Let's go back to the older one. And I want to know if you all can tell the difference just from looking at them between the two. Can you see how much larger this is? Angela, you're wondering, I'm assuming you mean the little ones that were close to our vehicle. What's wrong with them? Angela, don't worry. He's little, he's scruffy. He's been picked on by his older sister there, so that's probably why the fur is looking like that. But I don't think you should worry too much. Remember, when they're little, they do get quite a lot of sorry, they are sniffing our tires on the left-hand side and trying to bite them, and so Seb's just saying, hey, that's not allowed, you must move off. So excuse us for that sound that you heard in the background. Remember, we have a personal bubble and they have a personal bubble. We don't intrude on their personal bubble, but they also mustn't intrude on ours. And when they're young like this, they need to learn the rules. This one's already learned the rules. The two younger ones haven't quite yet. So, Angela, don't worry too much about how they looked. They are healthy, but you will sometimes see that the one that's not the dominant, the one that's more of a submissive amongst that sibling pair that we saw, might be a little bit scrawnier than the other one. But it's not because he's malnourished. It's not because of any other reason than the fact that he's most likely a male. They are getting bigger. Males are much smaller than the females, and the females are going to grow a little bit quicker than the males. But to me, I'm not noticing anything that would be cause for concern. But then we also have to remember as well that not everything can live the full lifespan that is set out. Every now and then something happens in nature that means that that particular individual is not meant to be, whether it happens to be sickness or predation or whatever comes their way. So for now, these two are fine, but to keep in mind, there's a nice little stretch from the older one. Can you look? I know they're not side by side. I'm hoping they get side by side so that we can see. But I mean, look how much longer those legs are. Look how much thicker. Monique, I have a feeling that there would be two different mums with these two different litters. I have a feeling that they're around, but they're probably just taking a break for now. They usually will come around this time in the evening and nurse and then go off and leave these ones be. Are you now also going to come play by our tire? Hyenas, I love hyenas. They've got no scum in coming close to us. They don't fear us overly much. I mean, the parents, the mums from these ones come over to our areas often, into our kitchen, and sort of smell. So they've got no problem. They can hear me talking. They can see the movement from Seb with the camera. Hello, buddy. Now, I'm hoping they just move a little bit away. Seb, are the two little ones?
So one is lying down right in front of
that
old one, and then the other one is in front of the bonnet. I'm not sure where exactly, but...
Okay, well, I'm not gonna...
He's here by your right.
Hello! He's smelling... I must have driven over something. He's smelling... When I say he, it could be she. I can't tell from here. He's smelling the front of the car. What are you smelling? Courtney, you're asking at what age will the young hyena leave the den site for good? Courtney, I've seen the mums take away the little ones anywhere from 6 to 9 months, usually closer to 9 months. But when you have multiple litters like this that have a few months in between, it usually goes a little bit farther for the older ones because they're waiting for the younger litters to catch up and then moving off. So yeah, let's say roughly around 9 months. But also, I mean, I have seen variations with a little bit earlier, like I said, and now that I'm speaking out loud about it, I've actually seen variations with some of the older ones as well.
Smelling your head.
Is he smelling my...
It looked like it was smelling your head.
Really? Seb is saying that it looked like this one here was smelling my head. That's hysterical. Oh, we've had good laughs today. So this older one's very disinterested in the younger ones. He came to I say he, could be a she, as she came over to investigate a little bit. Also probably to have a look just to make sure that whatever they're doing to the front end of my vehicle is not hurting them in any way. And then now she's decided that she's had enough of these silly youngsters. She's going to go back to her resting. I've had many guests over the years, especially when we get young hyenas like this, who comment on how cute their faces are. And a lot of my guests from North America, when they comment on it, say that it almost reminds them of a bear, the way that the ears look and the way that the face looks. It reminds them of a little bear. Scarlett, you're curious to know how much time do they spend without their mother. They will spend sometimes up to about 2 or 3 days without the mum. It depends on if the mum has been able to get anything to eat. In general, something that I've noticed over my time as a guide is that lion and leopard have to spend longer away sometimes than spotted hyena. From their young, because sometimes it's harder for them to get the nourishment that they need. They have to travel farther, whereas a hyena has a much more varied diet and so has the opportunity to spend less away. But yeah, about 2 or 3 days. So while we're busy here with our uber cuteness, Ralph would like to say hello, so let's go over to him. We'll stay put and hopefully get a few more shots before we have to end our show.
Okay folks, we just returned from your hyena there, and we've just got ourselves a nice big bull giraffe who's just stopped to feed. He was walking up the road at quite a pace. I wondered where he was off to. Maybe he was on his way to some water, but then just all of a sudden decided that he would turn off to the left and come and have a quick feed before he possibly moves on. He's got a lovely dark colour to him, and those males, as they do get a little bit older, they do get those nice dark hues of brown. It almost sort of turns a little bit black eventually, and he's a very good looking male, that. And as the sun starts going down in the background, we keep following on all these animals, all these antelope. You see there, look, what is he going to try and feed on there now? And off he goes into the distance. He's getting behind those thickets there. I'm going to try and move a little bit forward so that we get a little bit of a better view, because it looks like he's starting to feed now. So he was on the move, but now it looks like he's sort of decided to start feeding a little bit more. So let's see. Looks like he's feeding on an apple leaf. Let's just pull in here. Don't want to disturb him. I do want to just come in. Sorry, buddy. Like he's feeding on a little bit of a mixed bag. He was on the apple leaf. Now it looks like he's feeding on a little bit of a red bush willow. See that black tongue coming out? Lady from Jersey, Jersey lady, loves seeing giraffes, so do I. Look at that long black tongue coming out. That tongue is extremely long, and it does help them to feed on the branches. It's got extremely thick skin, but it's also black, got a lot of melanin in it, because they do spend a lot of the time out of the mouth and in the hot African sun. So if it wasn't black with that high levels of melanin, they would literally get sunburnt on the tongue. It would be quite painful. So that's the adaptation for giraffe not getting sunburnt on their tongue. Nice silhouette, that. There's a lady from Jersey I definitely agree with you. Giraffe, one of my favorite animals as well. I'm going to move forward slightly a little bit again. Seems like we've lost view of him, but I think we can pick up on him again. Ellie asking if giraffe have territories. Giraffe do not maintain territories at all. We say that giraffe, in terms of their group dynamics, they have loose associations. So giraffe don't maintain a territory, they don't mark territories, they don't chase other males out of a territory. They move and groove wherever they want. And a male like this, he wouldn't be chasing any other males away. He would obviously only fight with other males around females. So while we carry on sitting here with this giraffe, we'll see what he gets up to. But I think Noelle is still with the hyena, and why don't you cross to her?
So we've been watching these two younger ones and keeping an eye, and you can actually see the size difference between the two. The one on the left or towards the back, to me, definitely looks like a female, and the one from the male, and she's been picking on him a lot. I think he's quite sad about it. Now, with the talking about how long do the mums stay away, if the mums are away for 2-3 days, and the female's picking on her younger brother like this one, it can sometimes result in that siblicide that we've talked about. It's also known as canism. And it is part of a natural process within a hyena social structure, so it is a little bit sad to see and a little bit sad to watch. But yeah, it is pretty normal. So they've now gone back to where we found them, just in that tall grass at the bottom of that fallen over tree. And the older cousin still napping away, but still super cute. If he puts his ears forward, would be a nice little screenshot. And as we are getting ready to wind down, these hyenas, because they are predators and it's starting to cool down, are going to start winding up. And we might just get some of their activity around camp this evening like we usually do. Sometimes we hear them, sometimes we see them, sometimes we just find their tracks in the morning. And when this little one grows up, it'll probably start coming towards our camp as well and investigating all the sounds and smells that we have. So we've had quite the amazing evening thus far, and I have thoroughly enjoyed, as I always do, spending all of this a great time with you. So tomorrow morning it is going to be me out on game drive, and I think it is going to be James out on walk, as far as I know. So I look forward to seeing you all in the morning. Don't forget, we are live from, I believe, if I'm remembering my times correctly, from my morning would be about 11:30 at night for you guys. Sorry, Kirst. All right, so thank you so much from myself, Ralph, Brent, Jamie, camera crew, FC, and everybody here at Wild Earth. Enjoy your evening.